Yes. We'll call this meeting to order. The Orange County Board of Election pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves in the same courtesy towards both school personnel and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rule of Order will be used to conduct meetings. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. In addition to the moment of silence at each meeting held at a school site, the board will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruptions of the meeting. All right. We'll start with a moment of silence. All right. Superintendent, do we have any recognitions?
We most certainly do.
Wonderful.
Can I ask that we open that door, because aren't there people out there that should be hearing this?
So greetings, members of the board, staff and guests. It gives me great pleasure to advise you that tonight is a night of celebration and recognition. We will recognize and celebrate the achievement of our students, of our staff, and schools. So we are very, very proud of and applaud all of tonight's recipients. And so first up will be our student recognitions, and they will be facilitated by Mrs. Shannon Boehner-Braxton, Director of Arts and Director of Career and Technical Education.
Thank you. It's nice to have my full name read.
Yeah,
That's the first time that's ever happened.
She said, "Is that me?"
My parents, I'll let them watch that. They will be honored. That's my maiden name, Boehner. So, board members, I am honored tonight to recognize two groups of CTE programs. And the first one that I would like to recognize is Andrew DeGette. He'll come on up, and Justice Alder. Andrew DeGette is the videography, video production teacher at Cedar Ridge High School. It is a collaboration with ACC and Cedar Ridge, and she has been at Cedar Ridge for 10 years. This is her 10th anniversary. But they had the privilege and honor under Ms. DeGette's guidance to apply for and receive a grant through 360 Media. And they received this 360 equipment. I shared with you back in the spring the video that was produced by their program called Around the Same Table. And what was really awesome is that the video was submitted for an award, and it was honored as one of only 9 globally and only 1 from the North America to be shown at the United Nations General Assembly in New York City. And Justice Alder, who just graduated from Cedar Ridge High School, had the honor of going in September to New York City and present that video at the United Nations. So the other student that was a participant in that was Charles Bunker, and Charles was unable to be here this evening. While I have them here, I'd also like to just share that Ms. DeGette also applied for and submitted for 4 students to attend the National Association of Media Literacy Education Conference in Washington, D.C. in June. She was able to present, and also her students presented at that conference. And while she was there, PBS did some recordings of teachers, and she was one of the ones selected. And so we got to see a video clip of her statement on what is media. So it was very exciting, and tonight we're just honored to recognize you for all your hard work, Ms. DeGette and Justice. Thank you so much. And if you'll give that to Charles, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, that's wonderful.
That's great.
So Dr. H, did you have?
Yeah, I got a comment. I think it's important to also recognize that our new superintendent hit the ground running in the school system and hooked up with the folks in the videography program at Cedar Ridge, along with Orange County Sheriff Charles Blackley, and put a video together on the, so that students fully understand the seriousness of making threatening statements to harm others at school or anywhere else. And I just wanted to recognize you for that. And I also wanted to state that as the board representative for the Census 2020 here in Orange County, your name has come up, and I passed your name and your wonderful program on to Superintendent Felder, because the Census 2020 committee, made up of elected officials in this county, is asking that the Orange County Schools videography program under your leadership, with the approval of the superintendent, put together a video promoting Census 2020 and all the important work and monies that it means for children in this county school system. So I just wanted to throw that double brace of flowers your way.
Oh, well, thank you. Glad to talk about it.
The, one, I want to thank you for your work. I'm hoping that we'll see a lot of publicity from this in our local papers and on our website. I would love to see on our website the video clip from PBS on this. This is remarkable. And then if there's any type of video from the United Nations that are participating on that, that needs to be on our websites and our local papers. This is a strong statement of what we're doing right in this district. Thank you.
And the last thing I'll just add on is that they do have a Facebook page. I do follow it, and they do post a lot of their videos, and they're absolutely wonderful. So thank you.
so much for doing that.
Also Twitter.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
Twitter as well.
Twitter and
That's fair.
Facebook. I will say the Facebook is specifically for videography,
Yes.
which includes all of our sister programs, the darkroom program, and
Green
and
screens
the
and.
classes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks
a lot.
So I get to stand up here for one more. Very honored to have with us tonight Cole Watkins from Orange High School. And Cole, if you'll come on up, Mr. Watkins, and the team, the livestock judging team, if you'll come on up. So before you tonight is the Orange High School National FFA livestock judging team that placed 23rd out of the nation.
Wow.
That's who's standing in front of you tonight. Tonight, it's an honor to recognize Cole Watkins for going above and beyond and taking this team to Indianapolis, Indiana, to compete in all the long hours. And to Malosh McAdoo, who is a graduate now of Orange and is in college, and came tonight to be here with Ray Palmer and Kelly Finley and Morgan Ray. This team, Mr. Watkins tells me, represented Orange County with glowing remarks from everyone at the National FFA Convention. And so we're really excited to have them here in front of you this evening. While I have them here, let me just mention just a couple of more things. Orange High School had a student, a 2017 graduate, her name is Hunter Hall, and she received her American degree at this conference in Indianapolis, Indiana. Note that you do have to have service hours outside of high school, so that's not a degree that you would win in high school, but we're really honored to represent and have her here in Orange County Schools. And then also, Orange High School, for the third year running at the National Convention, was recognized as a 2-star chapter. Now, this honor is only received by very few chapters. I am told they are working as diligently as possible because their goal is to be a 3-star chapter. So they're doing great things at Orange High School and FFA. So thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for all that you've done.
I do wanna add something, because I have heard about this, and I just wanted to commend y'all for doing this. They actually drove to the conference to actually stop at some of the farms on the way, because there would be animals that they hadn't seen before. And the support of the teaching and staff helped them do that. So they didn't take a flight over, get off the plane and show up. They actually drove up, met with some of the farms, looked at the animals, and that's what it's about, doing above and beyond. You've made us proud. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you all, y'all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I get right.
You're welcome back anytime. Thank you. Good work.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You going well?
Thank you.
Thank you for opening this.
You're wearing the right colors.
Thank you so much.
Keep up the good work, young man.
The same color. Those are the same color.
Yeah, have a good night. See you.
He's a good child. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They're coming in now. Goodness, they're multiplying.
All right, so we are honored tonight to also recognize our wonderful staff. And so with that, I'm going to turn things over to Ms. Connie Bremer. Ms. Connie Bremer is Director for Human Resources. So Connie?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we are here tonight to recognize some excellence in our employees. As you know, Orange County has an employee excellence program, and our goal is to recognize outstanding employees who demonstrate excellence in service to their students and to their families and go well above and beyond their expected job duties. Tonight, we have several employees with us that exhibit excellence on a daily basis. All of these employees are role models for us. They have been nominated by their peers, and I couldn't take more pleasure in to introduce them to you. And I was sharing a few words about how they were nominated. So the first Employee Excellence Awards, and they all have their awards already, but they would like to come around and shake your hands afterwards. So the first Employee Excellence Award goes to Tony Witter. Mr. Witter is the principal of Cameron Park Elementary School. It says, I have nominated Mr. Witter because I have noticed the great work he does to achieve the integration and equity for all families of his school. He is a leader who knows how to listen to the staff concern and projects and transforms them into effective results. For example, the first Hispanic Heritage Festival of his school, where parents recognized the importance of cultural integration space and shared their time to be more active participants in benefit of the school community. This was unlike the previous years in which our Hispanic families did not attend school activities, including parent-teacher conferences. In 1 year of hard work, he has made our Latino parents feel welcome and they visit the school very often. Congratulations, Mr. Witter. Next, we have Ms. Green. Ms. Green is Director of Child Nutrition. It says, I nominate Valerie for her outstanding work in child nutrition. She goes over and beyond her duties as a child nutrition director. We are under review from the state this year, and she has been under extreme pressure getting things in order so that we can best serve the students. Thank you for considering Ms. Green as one of our nominees. And she actually had another person who says, Ms. Green always goes above and beyond as Director of Child Nutrition. She makes sure all of our school cafes run smoothly and that all our children are fed. Congratulations. We have Tevon Jones. Tevon is a technology teacher at Cedar Ridge High School. Tevon is always friendly, positive, and willing to help with even the most minor of technical problems. He works to get it right so that teachers can go about the business of teaching. The best technology is the tech that works seamlessly in the classroom. Congratulations, Mr. Jones. We have Kim Copeland, who is a teacher assistant at Pathways Elementary School, and she also works in community and schools. Kim is a warm, caring person who makes every child feel important. She takes the time to listen to them, help them, and most importantly, know that someone cares about their well-being. She ensures that her staff are happy and that no one feels left out. She is a great asset to the after-school program as well as to Orange County Schools. Congratulations. Ms. Julia Workman, who is a second grade teacher at Hillsborough Elementary School. Ms. Workman is a wonderful educator who leads by example. She is thoughtful and kind. She desires to be a better educator and learns everything that she can. She leads grade level meetings and often will stop in a meeting to check in on the mental and emotional health of her teammates. She is a kind human being, and when I engage in conversations with her, I leave feeling like I have been heard by her. She expresses interest in me as a person and not just as a staff member who can do something for her. However, when I'm able to help her, she shows me the praise and thanks. I love working with Julia Workman. Ms. Joy Alvis. Ms. Alvis is an exceptional children's teacher at Pathways Elementary School. Ms. Alvis is incredibly dedicated to the students and to their success. She gives 100% every single day and works tirelessly to support her team, her students, and their families. Ms. Alvis is an incredible advocate for the unique learning needs of her student and ensures that her expertise not only benefits her students, but makes sure that it benefits the teachers with whom she works. Ms. Alvis is a phenomenal member of our staff. Ms. Alvis. Robert Griffin, who is Spanish teacher at Orange High School. Mr. Griffin is an expert Spanish teacher who helps his students achieve tremendous growth in their learning, speaking, listening, and writing abilities every semester. However, this nomination seeks to recognize his efforts in supporting our students in our community. He attends and or volunteers at virtually every school event, shows authentic interest in the lives of students, and it has been proactive and effective in supporting our Latino students and building a supportive community. Congratulations. And we have Mr. Rayvon Obie, who is custodian at Central Elementary School. Mr. Obie, or Rayvon as we call him, is always willing to be accessible to the staff here at Central. He always has a smile on his face and a kind word of encouragement to share regardless of the circumstances. Cleaning continuously after children and adults can be tedious at times. It requires more physical strength but moral character and grace to perform. Mr. Obie exemplifies his faith and faithfulness to his job through excellence in service. As a fellow employee and cafeteria manager, I rely on his calm demeanor in the lunchroom with the kids every morning, and I am grateful for his friendship and service. Those are our employee excellence recognitions for tonight. I'd also like to take a moment. We want to recognize some other folks. So Orange County has actually been recognized or given a very special recognition tonight. We have been recognized as a National Board Accomplished District, so I have applied for you guys. And I will give it to Mr. Atherton and he can display it wherever he likes. So in order to achieve this status, districts must have at least 20% of their teachers as nationally board certified. There are 81 districts across the United States that have been recognized, and we are one of the 89. As part of our celebration, we would like to recognize a very special group of educators that just renewed their national boards. So not only did they take the time to get national boards, they have to renew it, which is just as intense process as the first time. So, as I call your name, if you would please stand, these folks just renewed. Shannon Braxton. Paula Patterson. Beverly Jones. Linda Osterman. Ellie Arnold. And Jane Williams. We had other folks that could not be here with us tonight. Hopefully we'll bring them back at a later date. And we also got a list today of a whole brand new set who just received their national board certification. So congratulations to them. Great.
Wonderful. Yes, absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Orange break.
Look,
Orange
we received
breaking.
your resignation.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we declined it, I'm sorry.
Don't let her run.
That was rejected on the spot.
Well, you finally found the right place.
Thank you for what you do.
Good job, man. Good job.
Well done. Thank you. Well done.
Congratulations.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you for all you do.
Coming out tonight.
I remember those days.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. It's good seeing you.
Good for y'all. Such a sweet little girl.
Alright, this.
It's on the list, yeah.
Alright, we're gonna let it go. Alright. Alright, let it go. We have public charge, moment of silence, recognition, yes.
Yeah, we're at
Agenda
agenda.
document. I'm ready when you are.
Well, I'm just gonna.
I got you.
Just give it a minute.
Maybe the superintendent may have more. You have more? She may have more.
What?
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
Okay, so,
Can we get the gavel?
so last but not least are our schools. I have the distinct honor of recognizing our schools. 11 of our 13 schools, that's 85% of Orange County schools are receiving a growth award certificates from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction for the 2018-2019 school year. These schools are being recognized for achieving and exceeding expected academic growth. These awards represent an impressive amount of hard work on behalf of students, educators, and administrators. So without further ado, I'd like to recognize the following schools in alphabetical order. And so first would be Principal Jeff Rockland from A.L. Steinbach Middle School.
I'm not Jeff.
You could be. You could be.
Congratulations, and if you could just remain standing. Cameron Park Elementary, Mr. Tony Whiter. And so from Cedar Ridge, we have Assistant Principal Heather Witherspoon with us. And from Central Elementary School, we have Jamie Bell Williams. And from Ethlyn Cheeks Elementary School, we have Miss Minnie Coins. Is she here today? No? All right.
But I will-
Well, we're gonna fill her. Okay. Tracy, if you would hold that one. From Grady Brown Elementary School, Christopher Marks.
You look like Chris Marks.
Kimberly Gravis, Assistant Principal. Griffiths. Okay. Congratulations to you. All right. Hillsborough Elementary School, Christine Craven. Congratulations. And from New Hope Elementary School, Ambra Wilson. There we go. And from Orange High, tonight we have joining us Dr. Brantley, Assistant Principal. There you go, congratulations. Also want to recognize Pathways Elementary School, so that would be Miss Lynn Brown. And last but not least, Partnership Academy. Is Mr. Barrington here? Oh, you- All right, congratulations. So can we give these schools that have worked so hard to accomplish what they've accomplished? Again, it is no easy task to make the kinds of gains that they've made. And so we're so proud of all of you, and we applaud your efforts. So congratulations. Then you're gonna go through that.
I did take a picture.
Thank you.
I did.
Did you say you're funny?
So,
Looking for a picture, were you? Oh, we take pictures.
What happened to Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, buddy.
That's all right.
Thank you. Thank you. Just keep on going through.
Congratulations to you again. And one more time, Tony. All right, you too.
Okay.
Really.
All right, next on our agenda, we have the agenda adoption.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, a reminder that the personnel report would be the amended personnel report. So we'll make sure that Teresa has that, and that's part of it. And then in addition, I'm encouraging the board to add a consent item to implement Senate Bill 199. I sent a memo to the board recently on that. We're running into a January 1st, 2020 deadline for the for the board to sort of adopt a training program on child sex abuse and sex trafficking. Obviously, the school district's not in a position to have the training program in place by January 1st, and the law doesn't require that. It just requires that you essentially adopt that you're gonna have a program. And so that's what this is. It specifically, what it would read is the agenda item, again, consent would be mandatory reporting requirements and training on child sex abuse and sex trafficking, implementing Senate Bill 199, and it would say the board authorizes the superintendent to adopt and implement a child sex abuse and sex trafficking training program that includes all the requirements of the law, which is 115C 37520. The training program will include the best practices from the field of prevention, the grooming process of sexual predators, the warning signs of sexual abuse and sex trafficking, how to intervene when sexual abuse or sex trafficking is suspected or disclosed, legal responsibilities for reporting sexual abuse or sex trafficking, and available resources for assistance. And again, that's a project that will come back to the board for further information down the road before it's implemented at the start of next school year. But for now, the board, if they would adopt that, that the superintendent would put this in place with those components. And so I'm suggesting that that be added as the last consent item because it needs to be done by January 1st, 2020, and this is the last meeting that you will have before that date.
Dr. Felder, do you have any concerns with adding that?
I do not.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve consent agenda as amended.
I think you're up. Are you at the
We're at the agenda adoption.
Agenda adoption.
Approve the agenda
Adopt.
as amended.
With that consent item, right?
With that consent item.
Thank you
Yes,
very much.
as amended by you.
Okay, thank you.
And, yes.
Okay.
We have a second by Dr. H. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
And just one final point on that, the district's already sent out a lot of information on the reporting information to staff. That's already gone out to all staff, and so that's in motion, but so there has been initial steps, but thank you very much.
All right, next on our agenda, we have public comment. Before we get to that, I have a short paragraph to read here. The Board of Education, as elected representative body of the school district, wishes to provide a forum for citizens to address the board with public comments, to provide an opportunity for input while conducting an orderly meeting. Individuals or group may be heard by the board in accordance with this policy. The board will provide an opportunity in open session at every regular meeting for the community members, students, and employees to address the board. A person wishing to address the board on a specific topic or an open session item on the regular agenda must sign up prior to the board's regular meeting by signing his or her name, address, and the agenda topic or topic on which he or she wishes to speak. The chair will recognize the speaker. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes for regular meetings of the board. When the 3 minutes ends, the speaker must stop speaking immediately. Yielding time to another speaker will not be permitted. The board will not have a discussion with any speaker. No profane or vulgar language will be permitted or personal abuse against any person. The board vests in its chair and other presiding officers authority to terminate the remarks of any individual when he or she does not adhere to the rules established above. Matters involving specific employees are protected under state law, and matters relating to specific students are protected under both state and federal. Public comment should not address any specific confidential student or personnel matter. Complaints concerning any specific employees or students are not permissible during public comment. If you wish to address a matter that may require identifying either a student or an employee, please first direct your inquiry to the superintendent for assistance on the process to address your concerns. Additionally, if there are materials that you wish to present to or give to the board, please hand those items to our Chief Communication Officer. He will deliver those items to the board. Citizens may not interrupt, disturb, or disrupt the Board of Education meeting and will be subject to the provisions of General Statute 143 through 118.17. Noting in this policy shall prevent the board from limiting public comment at any board meeting. All right, who do we have up first? Megan Darden?
Thank you.
Orange County Board and Dr. Felder for this opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Megan Darab, and I have a daughter in 4th grade at HES. While I'm currently the HES PTA president, I'm not here to speak on HES as a whole. I'm here as a parent and Orange County resident. Over the past year, I've been concerned with the actions taken and statements made by this board, so much so that I've lost a good amount of faith in the board's charge to be transparent with the community. Since the poor rollout from ORED on the 3 assignment options, 4 specific items have stayed with me. First, the failure to warn administration at the affected schools about the plan for a reassignment, leaving them blindsided without information to pass on to their school families. Second, the way the Parent Advisory Council was made to involve the community in the process, but was never brought into the discussion. There was a chance to recover when another Parent Advisory Council meeting was scheduled, but then canceled the day before. Parents had cleared their schedule and were ready to discuss their issues, and this ended up being a wasted opportunity. I believe the issues and wishes of our community do not change just because the superintendent does. Third, I've heard from more than one member that the options were a surprise to them and blame placed on ORED. Going back to the March BOE work session retreat meetings and presentations given by the staff over the year, I, as a person outside of this board, was not at all surprised by the recommendations by ORED. The recommendation follows the thread that was started at the March BOE reassignment retreat. And finally, the BOE work session meeting on November 25th, an agenda item, Orange County year-round program. Not once in the past year on public record has the year-round program been in jeopardy of cancellation. This agenda item raised many fears in HES families, and such a short time after they felt like they were losing their favorite teachers, staff, and school family, only to have the presentations be facilities update and not a mention of the year-round program. It was confusing and caused many different avenues of speculation, making the community guess at the objective of the agenda item. If anything, I believe it showed poor organization and communication among the board and staff. I'm hopeful that presentations from tonight's agenda and meeting minutes from December 2nd's BOE retreat will offer some resolution to the outstanding issues I still have. My hope with my comments tonight is for you to ask if this board has been open, straightforward, and transparent with this community. Thank you.
Tracy Shan?
Can refrain, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, on to board reports and comments. Ms. McKenzie?
Good evening, everybody. It has been a while since we've had a board comment, because the last one was a work session. I will not list everything I've done for the last 2 months, but some highlights. I know you're all disappointed. The North Carolina School Board Association conference last month was a really wonderful opportunity to come together and collaborate with other board members from around the state. Some of my favorite things that I was able to do at that retreat were a breakout session about strategic planning, which is especially relevant since we are looking at creating a new one fairly soon. Seeing Anthony Johnson from Rowan Salisbury County talk about innovation in his classroom, and also seeing Stephen sworn in as president of the North Carolina School Board Association for the year. It was a great opportunity, and I was really glad I was able to do it. A few weeks ago, I was able to attend the Minority Achievers Program as they inducted new members. That was at Orange High School, and can you guys remind me the name of the speaker at that event? Ryan
Brooks.
He was amazing and so poignant, and he spoke of chasing the lion, and I will not try to recreate it, but it was just one of the best speeches I've heard in a long time. I was also able to go to the Thanksgiving lunch at Partnership Academy, which is also always a special time to sort of give thanks for the many things in our district and to have some fellowship with that community. I've also gone to Budget Committee, Student Achievement Committee, Policy Committee, and certainly our board retreat last week. And that is a brief overview.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Cafieres?
Just want to pass out this little piece here on Census 2020. you, Mr. Chair, had asked me to, you offered the opportunity to the entire board, nobody took it up, so you asked again, so I volunteered
I appreciate that.
to serve on the Census 2020 for Orange County. And we've had our second meeting, the last one was 2 weeks ago, on a Saturday morning in this very room. And I appreciate Dr. Felder facilitating, opening up the building. Joel Brown, Chair of the Chapel Hill Carborough City Schools, pointed out to me that each board member over there, I believe, has a key to get into the Board of Education building, and that's something certainly we should contemplate for people to have in this system. After all, it does say Board of Education on the outside. The importance of the census, and I appreciate Dr. Felder making copies of this. If you look at these 55 large federal spending programs that are listed on this sheet, over half of them have some kind of impact on our school children. Whether it's supplemental nutrition assistance, Title I grants, state stimulus, health insurance program, Head Start, WIC, healthcare centers, school breakfast programs, child and adult care food program, there's just a whole host of stuff. And if we don't get an accurate count, we stand to lose a significant amount of money. So I came back with a request from County Commission Chair Renee Price, who's spearheading this whole effort. And both Joe Brown and I shared with Commissioner Price that operating procedure is school board members don't make decisions relative to much of anything by themselves. The official spokesperson for the board is the chair by policy. And if we have a request, we bring it back to the whole board and send it to the superintendent. So I sat down with Dr. Felder, and she's got the ball rolling. Sharita Cobb is gonna be representing the Orange County Schools in these efforts, utilizing social workers at each school. Interestingly enough, both Ms. Price, Ms. Brown, and others have heard about the videography program at Cedar Ridge and really wanted to get that program to do a video on the importance of Census 2020. Ms. Price offered to go talk to Mr. Gett because they're next door neighbors. I said, no, it doesn't work that way. I'll bring this back to Dr. Felder. Dr. Felder, in turn, will facilitate anything we can do to help you guys out. So once again, it's important to understand the meaningfulness of 2020 census and getting an accurate count. And it's also important to note that there's some fear in the community with respect to whether it's ICE or the federal government swooping down and grabbing people. And I pointed out to that planning committee that this school system and this school board over the past 8 years has passed 2 resolutions saying that our primary concern with all children outdoors is their education, not their immigration status, national status, or anything else. We're here to help them learn. So I would encourage you all to reference this chart and see exactly the importance of the whole mission. Attended IB presentation night a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to praise Dr. Felder. She was there. It seems that Dr. Felder is everywhere. She's here, there, and everywhere, whether it's making videos for student safety with the sheriff. She's at IB presentations, and very impressive, to say the least. I don't think I've ever been to an IB presentation night that wasn't impressive. Talked with Mr. Atherton there, and we both thank the superintendent for being there. Orange County Climate Council, another one of those opportunities that everyone was offered an opportunity to volunteer to be on. Nobody went forward, including me on the first go-around. On the second go-around, I offered to go. So anyway,
Some of us are on lots of committees, Dr. H.
Thank you.
Just
But
gonna
there's
put that out
always
there.
more opportunities to join,
Yes,
even more.
Of course.
And thank you
And
for that.
so the bottom line is, there's gonna be $500,000 up for grabs down the road. And I think it's important for us to be involved with this group. I've already sent them a PowerPoint presentation that Dr. Henry sent to me, and I appreciate that, with respect to the geothermal heating system we're doing at Orange High School. And have reported out that other entities looked at geothermal, they felt it was too costly. We felt that it was worth the very short 5 or 6 year payback, and we went ahead with it. The stormwater runoff program and capturing that water, the reservoir at Orange High, while currently the system is down, we hope to be getting it back up, because that program had about $400,000 in state and federal money attached to it several years back. I too was at the School Board Association conference in Greensboro, and the thing that really struck me, the sessions I attended, all basically had a backdrop of changing demographics in North Carolina. Declining public school enrollments, increasing enrollments in charter schools, increasing enrollments in homeschooling. And the challenges out there are extremely concerning. And I suggested at a meeting we had a little while ago that when people go to these conferences, I think it's important to come back and have a sharing session, just 10 or 15 minutes, because you learn a lot at these sessions, and it's good to come back and share this stuff for those who did not have an opportunity to go. The Thanksgiving lunch at Partnership Academy, I think, is explosively attractive because of the explosive and charming personality of the leader of that school, Mr. Farrington, and his overwhelming Mother Earth secretary, Kathy. She is a blessing to all those kids, and they absolutely love her. And if you want to have an image of what motherhood is all about, this is my personal opinion. You go talk to her and listen to her, and she is just a wonderful person. All schools need somebody like Miss Kathy in their office to help you out to get through the day. And the MAP program started at Orange High School several years ago, and it's a wonderful program. And we need to look how to foster and promote more of those programs in this school system. Mr. McAdoo, who was here earlier, that Ms. Braxton noted, he is a first-year student at North Carolina A&T State University. He got a presidential award for that school, total ride paid. He is a shining light, okay? The Palmer kid who was here earlier, the Finley girl. These kids are the future of agriculture in North Carolina. The Palmer kid has got all these winning hogs that you see on Facebook. It's absolutely, some of the most beautiful hogs in the world. I think a hog, I think of bacon, 1 pound package. This kid has got the live, in reality animal at his beck and call. And that's what he wants to do, as did his brother. So we do amazing things in the school system with amazing children, and it's an honor and a privilege to be part of that. So thank you.
Sarah?
Right. Before I get into some of the things that I've been doing lately, I had this side note, which was, I feel like that intro to public comment is like maybe getting bigger and bigger over time. And I just have a question. Is there another way to do that? We don't have to talk about it right now, but is there a way to just
I
sort
support that.
of figure out how to, I mean, I know there's a lot of information the public needs to know, but, you know, is there a different way to do that? Okay.
It's doubled in size since
It has.
2008.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a lot larger.
Doctor, you can read it in 0.5 seconds, maybe we need to give it to him.
No, I don't wanna read it. It's, I don't know why it's grown. I think it's a question that needs to be discussed.
Yep.
I will take that action.
Cool,
Good.
thank you. The School Boards Association Conference was wonderful, really enjoyed the sessions, I'll say a lot more there. Student Achievement Committee had some topics we'll hit tonight, but also talked about IB and AP participation rates and passage rates and things like that. And I've suggested as staff that we get an update to the full board at the end of the year. I don't know if that's sort of a standard thing that makes it onto the agenda or we need to request it. But I think we looked at some of the data, and some of it, they generally have, it's good to look at like end of year data and compare it to end of year data. And so we looked at the point of the year right now, but I think we should be comparing end of year to end of year. So a potential topic. There was also a topic that I wondered, Ms. Stevens, if the School Boards Association might want to weigh in on. We talked about new coursework, so maybe we can talk about this more in the new coursework that comes up tonight. There was something that I thought maybe the clout of the School Boards Association could be helpful for. And then lots of arts events. Went to Karen Park's holiday concerts, went to the Prism concert with all the band programs together, coming all over the auditorium. Our students are so talented. It was amazing. And then later that night, I went to a 24-hour play festival that Orange High School and Cedar Ridge High School put on, where the students, in 24 hours, they go from getting into a small group, coming up with the concept of a play, writing a play, staging it, planning the lights, all the everything, and then all the way to producing it and acting it 24 hours later. So that was really cool, and I liked that both of those were sort of cross-district collaboration. I love seeing those opportunities, so those are a few things for me.
All right. Mr. Roberts?
The one thing to follow up on what Dr. Halkiotis was saying, on the pre-census or on the census, be on the lookout for pre-census people coming around. They've already been over to my area, and they were having a hard time finding neighborhoods. Take the time to point out where some of our new neighborhoods are in the community, because they didn't know about 2 subdivisions when they came back. They did go, so take the time to help them find all the new neighborhoods that are out there. I did have a chance to attend the Budget Committee meeting this past month. I attended the Mebane Parade, and it was actually positive. I was able to see Orange County students participating in the parade, very positive. And I'd like to thank the bands that participated in that, recognizing that Mebane is a part of our county, or of our school district. The sheriff has recognized it. He was marching in the parade with some of his staff. So it's important that we recognize that not only is there Hillsborough, there is also Mebane. And I did hand out business cards with the Orange County logo while I was there. And I chose to do that, and I chose to attend the meeting on my own. I did visit Ethel Cheeks Elementary and highlighted some concerns that I saw there during the past month, and they were legitimate concerns. My biggest issue now, seeing how we have some representatives, there's 2 things that I think that came out of the work session. Was one, we have a lot of deferred maintenance in the district. Some of our deferred maintenance that we cannot pay for right now, for one school in particular, is higher than actually saying that we're gonna build a new elementary school that meets today's education standards, and also increase the capacity of our elementary schools. And we have to take an honest look at how we're counting our students. It appears that we do not count pre-K students, even though we have pre-K students in our elementary school. That is what parents have requested. They want their pre-K students in elementary school because it is a convenience to the parents. A lot of parents have more than one child, and it is a convenience for the parents to drop their elementary schools, their pre-K students off at the elementary school. There will be times when they'll have to have more than one school that their children are going to. But to ignore the fact that we have pre-K students in our elementary schools is not meeting what our parents are asking for. The second one is that apparently we're only supposed to have mobile classrooms for a fixed number of years. Jake, I have asked how many mobile classrooms we have, what the age on them is, and how many students are assigned to them. It's also been explained to me that we may not count those students as being part of our students. At some point, we have to go into every classroom and say, how are we using that classroom? What are the federal requirements, the state requirements on how we use that classroom? If it's an EC classroom, we can't have 22 students in it. We can only have a certain number based on requirements. If it's a pre-K classroom that our parents say that they want, we can only have a certain number of students in that classroom. To ignore that fact is not recognizing how we have to educate our students. The next item was that I've heard a rumor that there's gonna be a tax increase that's gonna be justified, that the county commissioners recognize that we need additional monies. and that the justification for that may be that it's for the schools. If it is for the schools, I challenge the county commissioners to give the whole 100% of what they're saying that they need for the schools, for the tax increase, to the schools. And that's my report.
Okay, all right, so I attended the board retreat and the budget meetings and such, and I also attended 2 North Carolina School Boards Trust meeting, as I am one of the trustees, because Orange County is a member of the North Carolina School Boards Trust. And the primary topic has been active shooter insurance, that I'm sure Rhonda and Dr. Felder has received a letter regarding that. I went to the Orange High School Minority Achievers Program, and Ryan Brooks, what resonated with me was that he talked about the teacher that made such an impression on his life. And I guess Betty Eidner has a way of doing that, so yeah, he called her name, and so it was good to hear. Thanks to Valerie Green for stepping up to the plate, pun intended. For Friday, she fed about 75 people or more from Layton County, Henderson County, Buncombe County, and No Kid Hungry, North Carolina. And I just dropped by and it was a big turnout, and Valerie was there doing the stuff herself, by herself. She was there cleaning up and doing the food and such all by herself. But that is so Valerie. But and there was a bus here from Alamance County loaded with people. It was a big deal, and I do thank you, Valerie, for making us look good. I'm sure the food was tasty. It was the what was it? North Carolina Public Relations Association had their meeting here. And I've been shopping at that pop-up Dewey's quite a bit. And I just say, it's been a pleasure to do this for Orange High School, but it was a pleasure to do it for myself. Because I love, I lived in Winston-Salem for 3 years, so it really, it was a good memory, it rekindled the memories, but the food, the cookies are so delicious. And they're gonna, so just please drop by if you haven't had an opportunity. And last, Hillary mentioned the state conference, somebody else did too. The item that rose to the top for me was listening to the candidates for state superintendent. As you all know, one's dropped out. So you've got to keep up with that. So I liked listening to them. Initially, Ramona had invited Mark, the current superintendent, to participate, but then, he said, I'm not running for that office. So of course he came and did his thing in the other capacity. So I thank you for the opportunity, and I'll say to serve. I won't be traveling. Someone had mentioned at one point perhaps I couldn't fulfill certain duties here because I would be traveling, and I'm not gonna travel any more than I ordinarily would, except when it's time for the district meetings. I look forward to going to all of the district meetings, because the Cherokee group, I hope you all enjoyed them at the state meeting.
Incredible.
It was you learned a lot. Yeah, so I hope to learn a lot when I go there. One of the district meetings will be in the Cherokee Central School District. Yeah, you go with me. All right, thanks a lot.
Mr. McKnight? All right. All right, so I have a few items. Like Ms. McKenzie mentioned, it's been a while.
It has.
The first one is the Orange County Radio Summit. I attended that with Dr. Bridges. We talked a little bit about some of the issues we're facing, pre-K being one of them, equity, and our funding. It was only about a 30-minute, but it was really good to be able to talk in public about those items. I was able to attend one of the days at the law conference in between these other items. Very interesting legal challenges that have come up. And I think we're gonna have more challenges as we change things going forward. I attended the third annual art show. This was at the public library. There was a lot of interesting art from different people within our community. They invited us to attend, but it was on top of the law conference, so many could not. I attended the Orange County Collaboration Work Group meeting with all of the chairs, and Tony was there as well. This was a discussion that we have with the chairs of both school systems and the Orange County, talking about items that we would like to talk in the joint meeting. I've shared that meeting minutes and some of the agenda items, and we'll be talking more about them so we're prepared when we have the collaboration meeting February 25th. Dr. Felder, Dr. Keeling, and I were invited to the Exchange Club. We had a great discussion with them, lots of questions about Orange County schools and, what are we looking at in equity. It was a very great discussion with them, and thank them for all their support they do with the Orange County schools. Pet Pals, North Carolina, the first annual open house. This is a free program to Orange County schools and is an animal-assisted therapy for activities K through 12 students to enhance the academic, social, emotional, and behavioral growth. They'll bring these animals in, and students that are having issues, they bring these pets in. It's a very wonderful program that we've had in our schools. It's free, it's expanded, it started off small, and it's in every elementary now. So I was very excited to learn more about the program. We had the Principal and Assistant of the Year. Hillary attended that with me as well. Congratulations to Ms. Goins and Dr. Brantley. Central Elementary Fall Festival. I went there was lots of art, reading, the haunted hallway, lots of food. Met wonderful parents and really enjoyed it, and I appreciate everything they're doing. Attended the OCIM 38-year celebration, thanking them for all of their support in our community and our schools. We do referrals to them for families in need. The Orange High School theater production was a wonderful production. This was the Catachrome presentation. They actually took this to a competition. It's one of their first. Several awards they won for bringing that. North Carolina Supreme Court Bicentennial Anniversary Oral Arguments. I got to attend that with several students from Orange High and from Cedar Ridge. This is where a rare opportunity where the North Carolina Supreme Court actually held a case in the Whitted building. And we were able to sit in, see how the proceedings went, very educational on our judicial system. I also attended the IB exhibit. It was a wonderful program. A couple of things that caught my eye there was one of the research papers on what's the best shape for an ice cream cone, all the geometry around it, the geometry around spider webs, the art projects and research, just a wonderful program. Other thing I got to attend was the Prize Patrol of New Hope Elementary. This is an amazing program. This is where they award, in this case there were 4 children, where we actually drove to their house, recognized them, gave them a balloon and a pizza for their family to share about their accomplishments. It's just one of those very unique things that we're doing in our county, and just makes me proud that we're doing something very unique. Also attended the Orange High School Minority Achievers Program induction with Brenda and Hillary and Dr. H. And as you mentioned, it was wonderful. I took away Chase the Lion. Just a wonderful story about that. The Hillsborough Orange County Chamber of Commerce, myself and Dr. Felder attended, had some introductions there, and also talked about ways that we could have other opportunities such as project search, interns, and co-ops. We're scheduled to do a follow-up in January to see what opportunities we can get. I was also able to attend the Hillsborough Christmas Parade. My family and I enjoyed being in the parade. We had pencils and glow sticks that we purchased and gave out. I also found out that the other elected officials were formally invited. We were not. I did fill out paperwork to that. I have reached out to them and they're going to correct that. So next year I'm expecting all of us to get formal invitations. The holiday choral concert at Orange High School is always very entertaining and amazing performances. I definitely encourage any of the audience to attend. Holiday conference concert for Cameron Park, same as Sarah. It was a wonderful program. It's very large production. I got a chance to do reading at pre-K and learned about feelings at New Hope Elementary. Reading books from Elephant and Piggy was very entertaining. The Prism concert, like Sarah mentioned, these are all bands from 6 to 12, doing a holiday conference or concert from all angles. About 52-ish selections was done very quickly within an hour. It was a wonderful concert. And this, the past couple of months, I've enjoyed helping out at the elementary schools, the car rider in the morning, giving some of the staff a break, welcoming our students to have a good day, and some of the staff. I also would like to tell the board that Eflin is having a holiday parade Saturday, December 14th at 9 a.m. They're lining up at the car wash. It is very informal event. So there's not a list or anything, very informal. I didn't get an invitation. This was the word of mouth of, hey, why don't you show up at the Eflin parade? My family and I will be in the parade, and we'll hand out some more pencils, but any board member that would like to participate, please show up. You can walk, ride, do whatever you like. It's really just a small town presentation. Let's see. I guess the last thing I'll mention here, because there's other agenda items that I'll make some comments on, is that just jumping off of what Dr. H mentioned about the ag culture program, I did send the board and the superintendent talking about this is the 75th year of the Junior Livestock Show this year, and I'm hoping we can, as a board, come up with some ideas of how we can celebrate that from past and current students, and do something really special and celebrate the agricultural programs we have. With that, we'll go to the superintendent.
Okay, so good evening, everyone, again. First, let me start by saying that it is truly an honor and privilege to serve as superintendent for Orange County Schools. And so today is my 39th day. And I have hit the ground listening and learning. Just some of the things that I've done have already been mentioned, but I've been visiting schools and attending a number of events. I've met with a variety of staff to discuss their current work and structures that they need to support them in their work. I am meeting with a number of current and potential partners, business partners, clergy, etc., to learn about ways in which they are currently supporting the district and ways that they may consider supporting our students. Because if you know anything about me, you know that I truly believe it takes a village. This is not work we do alone, nor should we. These children belong to all of us, and it will take all of us to ensure their success. I'm in the process of working with Cabinet to create a principals roundtable. So again, in the process of listening and learning, we need to hear from our administrators, and while I've met with each of them individually, this will be an opportunity for them to come together, and our job is to listen. We want to hear from them, what's working, where there are opportunities for improvement, and what recommendations do they have. And this will not be a one-shot deal. This will be, these principal roundtables, something we do on a regular basis. And we're also in the process of planning Listen and Learns. And so this is an opportunity to give families in the community an opportunity to share with us about, again, their perspective and insights, experiences regarding what's working in the district, where there are challenges, opportunities for improvement, and what recommendations do they have. It would also be an opportunity for staff, all staff, whether you are a bus driver, you are in food, nutrition services, a teacher, regardless of your role, if you collect a paycheck and you're considered staff, we want to hear from you. So we've revised the schedule a bit, and we're up to 13 Listen and Learns, and so we will finalize the logistics on those Listen and Learns, and the goal is to get them published and out to the public before we go to winter break. We hope to have childcare, and we hope to feed you with pizza. That's the best we can do. And if that helps to get folks out, then pizza it shall be. But it will just be a great opportunity to hear from. It's not an opportunity for us to, get into deep conversations as much as it is to listen. We need to hear from the stakeholders in this district if we're going to make improvements that will increase achievement and improve outcomes for our students. So those are just some of the things that I've been up to in my 39 days. And again, thank you for the opportunity to serve.
All right, thank you. All right, next on our agenda is the consent agenda.
As amended. As amended.
As amended, I do believe there's a need to amend the minutes. So I would request we pull that and just have that item right after consent. Do we have a motion?
Move adoption of the rest of the items.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, on the minutes, I would recommend, I'd recommend the change of to say, board members stated their support to keep a year-round program and to plan a facilities retreat. I think the way it's worded now indicates that we have a plan, which we do not. So it's just a minor word change on that one sentence. We have.
No, I'll trust you, mine still say 2016.
And the person listed there too is no longer here.
Right.
So we'll need to amend all that?
I just need a motion to change that one sentence wording.
Basically, is there a motion to approve the minutes with that change?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries.
Now,
With that,
let me ask this, why is Brenda's 2016, I've got, what have I
She
got?
means in the,
So,
abstract,
yeah,
not
in-
on
Yeah.
the actual minutes.
Okay.
when they created the form, they copied an old one and
Yeah.
kept.
Got it.
Yeah.
It has been noted, and we are working hard to
Okay.
get.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Vaping 101.
We have some materials to present. If folks will take a folder, we submitted some handouts, but I saw one online. I'm gonna get out of your way so you can, so just in the interest of time, we're gonna go ahead and start. My name is Donna King. I'm with the Orange County Health Department. I also have with me tonight Rita Krosner from the Health Department, and
I'm Paige Shellcamp with the Orange Partnership for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth.
so what we're doing right now is just passing out some of the common electronic cigarette devices that your folks on the front line at the campuses have probably seen, heard about, talked about, and just wanna let you know that this is not anything that's new, that this is something that your frontline staff have been dealing with and have been seeing for quite a while. One of the documents that you had in your packet was from the Department of Public Instruction, February of last year, that gave guidance and advices to school districts about how they could handle and what their recommendations were for curriculums, activities on campus, signage, and we know that our Orange County schools have been Also, let me show you that one as well. This one is called a mag.
And it's heavy.
And it's very much like for those folks who know weapons, that drops
Oh,
out.
man.
The cartridge goes in. You're now locked and loaded.
Oh, man.
And that's the language that they use on that box and device.
And we clearly suggest this is just a show and tell, don't use.
Oh,
Right.
oh, yeah.
Now you don't have that problem.
You
So,
must have a law degree too.
Now I'm married to an attorney.
so Sarah, you have the vape, the Juul, which is the most popular one that we're seeing. What we wanted to do just for the next few minutes, if you want to walk through your packet, it's just going to give you some basic information. We also have handouts for parents, and we will make sure that these handouts get resubmitted so you can make sure that faculty, staff, and groups have that. But before I get any further, I want to say thank you to the frontline staff that are your team out there on the field every day, working with our young people and helping them when they may find themselves in a situation with a device such as an e-cigarette. We've got Sharita and her group in student services and our counselors. We have our school nurses. We have our health and PE teachers that are teaching and creating this awareness. And we also have like our Roger Ivies that are making sure our tobacco-free signage is up and in place. So all across your campus, you've got a front line of defense that does strong work to help our students understand what the dangers are and to be in compliance with the 100% tobacco-free school policies that we have. I understand that there's being some work done on code of conduct as well. The Juul, if we can just take a look at that one, it's very discreet, it's very small. It would not be hard for someone to tuck that into a sleeve and just take advantage of using it in the class, tuck the hood and exhale or into a sleeve or an arm. Or a device can be left in a restroom where somebody can use it and then another student can come and use it. You've got a device that delivers nicotine. And what we know about the adolescent brain, it is primed for that pleasure pathway to be set by any chemical. And you've got a very strong chemical in nicotine. With use of these products, addiction can develop in our students. And we may be asking what's going on with our students that they would need a substance. You know that your students are facing things at home. You know that there's high academic stress. We know some kids get bored. They're going to be prone to experiment and try. With these products, we have something that is very strong. The Juul in itself, those little cartridges, if we can just kind of pass those around, one of those little cartridges is 20 cigarettes, a pack of cigarettes. About 200 puffs on the Juul. The Juul came onto the market in 2015 and it now has the market. People even don't talk about vaping, they call it juuling. It is now a verb. What you're holding in your hands are the iPhones of e-cigarettes. It's an accessory, it's a gadget, it's a must-have tech device. And we have information in your packet to help parents start conversations with their young people about what's going on, what the dangers are. Perceptions are that students don't think it's very harmful. Traditional cigarette smoking, we saw it just go right on down. In 2011, we started having these electronic products come on the market. And then in 2015, when we saw Juul, and then a couple of years after, we started seeing tobacco use of youth start to rise again because of these new innovative products that are out there. In 2016, we heard from the Surgeon General with the warning about the adolescent brain and the concern that nicotine addiction would cause problems with memory, behavior, concentration, and this may be some of the things that our students are experiencing in the classroom. So we are here just to show these devices to you, provide you with some basic educational tools for parents and your educators. The health department stays in constant contact with especially Sharita Cobb and Penny Rosner as we're getting educational information to make sure it's getting out to the proper individuals. And I also would like to give a few minutes to Paige, and so she can tell you a little bit about the program and her work with the students that she works with, and then we'll take questions.
So really quickly, the Orange Partnership for Alcohol and Drug Free Youth has a program within the 2 high schools. So I personally work with, they call themselves the APT, the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention Team. And I have about 6 students at Cedar Ridge and 6 at Orange. That do a lot of work in the community around substance use for youth and trying to prevent that. So primarily we do work with alcohol, but with the uptake of the vape products that they're seeing in the schools, they've asked to add that in. One of the big things that we do is peer education for the 8th graders. So this team of about 12 high schoolers makes presentations in all of the 8th grade classrooms. And this past year, sorry, that's Sal's phone, okay. This past year, they really wanted to add in vaping, even though that's not a primary product that we work with, because they are seeing it so much. Anecdotally, what we're seeing is a lot of use in the classroom because it can be done so subtly with the jewel in the sleeve. And so that's something that came up, and so we've added some information into our peer education program about that. But definitely, the increase is being seen and felt across the school system, particularly in the 2 high schools.
What is that thing?
Yes.
So it looks like the planchette on a Ouija board,
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Or a perfume bottle.
Yeah, I
Or-
thought a Ouija
Yes,
board.
does anybody in the audience want to see some of our products?
So, and one of the concerns about these products is you need to understand that the users are very creative, and there are things besides the e-liquids that are being aerosolized inside of these devices. If they are using a hash oil, a concentration of cannabis, they can dab or dab in those devices. They can put THC liquids in those devices, alcohol in those devices, cough syrup, anything, is not out of the realm of possibilities. They find recipes online, on social media. One of the things that attracts young people to these devices are the colors, the technology, and the flavors. The nicotine keeps them there. And then we need to be thinking about, with our policies and procedures, how can we not blame and shame our students, but help them have a safe space to come and get help if they have a substance use disorder. And I know we have strong services here. It's how do we help families and parents take advantage of that?
Also, from the perspective of the students, a little bit of, they don't necessarily have any suggestions, but help for staff, because when this is happening so subtly in the classroom, where there's bathrooms where everybody knows that's the bathroom, you don't go there to go to the bathroom, you go there to use one of these products. That it's really hard to track and do anything about that in a bathroom or in a classroom where you can't see it. And so any ideas from them, or if y'all have any, to help kind of support staff figure out how to deal with this issue that they're seeing in a way that is effective. It's difficult.
Questions?
What's this Cola Man thing we have?
So that's the e-liquid.
So she
Okay.
said this was a little leaky, so
It
just.
spilled
So-
on me, which is
Yeah,
why I
so no, I'm
washing my hands. I
but
was
she
like,
did, but just be careful.
So
before
this
you take it
particular
out.
one-
I started acting weird.
I
So,
just want you to-
no, this
Oh,
particular,
really?
so here's the thing, it's cola, it's supposed to be like soda. This particular one is labeled with 0 milligrams of nicotine, but it also has glycol, it also has vegetable glycerins in it, it also has other chemicals in the e-liquid. Even if it doesn't have nicotine, the flavors, the sweeteners, the thickeners, when they are heated and aerosolized, and you also have a coil and battery that's heated, people who work with metals know that those metals can be released. And that's what makes it dangerous, whether it has THC, whether it has nicotine in it, or if it's just a fancy child flavor. Some of the flavors that we passed around, you can tell that the flavors and the technology and the gadget attracts, the nicotine keeps them. And that's
Where's the country of origin for that?
I don't know.
Several of
if-
your devices are made in China, it says very clearly.
I'm not sure if this one has where this particular one is, but they definitely have great websites and they'd be glad to, that's the other thing too, with web, all you have to do is click to say you're 18. Click that you're an adult.
There's no verification.
And there's no verification, and you can access some of these websites. So folks do order things offline and get access online. Here's the other thing that I wanna make clear. There are no safe products. You can't have a parent go to a reputable shop to purchase for their student. There's not a safe way. When the vaping illness, the lung illness that we're seeing, there have been 48 deaths across the 25 states. There's several thousand cases. The CDC is tracking, they're following. They have, know that there's THC involved, no THC involved. They know that they've had this vitamin E that was a thickening agent that did cause some problems, but it's not the only thing, and they're still analyzing. So there's no, oh, they got sick because they did it wrong, or they got sick because they had street stuff and it wasn't really the good stuff. There's not any good stuff. The Surgeon General, the CDC, everyone is saying that this is not for young people, this is not for adults. If we have adults that want to quit, you don't start doing e-cigarettes. There are FDA-approved patches, gums, and lozenges for adults and youth that may have a nicotine issue to help in that recovery process. So just thank you for the frontline work that your teams on these campuses do every day, and that it's across the campus. I would like to also say that there are curriculums that go in a math class, an English class. It doesn't have to just be something that's talked about in health one time. This needs to be, you guys are the experts. You know how you change behavior over time, and it's consistent messaging, and it's frequent, and it's often, and it's multiple channels. And you just stay at it. Stay the course. You're there doing the right thing, and we really appreciate that.
And we have to remember that they're being messaged through, most young kids don't use Facebook, but they use Snapchat, use Instagram, they use Twitter, and they're being inundated with those types of messages. And kids will tell you, oh, well, they got sick because they vaped wrong. Well, there's no right way to vape. There's no safe way to vape. So it's really important that kids somehow get the message that, this isn't safe.
And there are media campaigns by the FDA and the CDC that are being channeled specifically to youth. The Truth Campaign, the Real Cost Campaign, as an adult, you're not gonna see it. On the channels and Facebook and Snapchat where the kids are going, also posters were sent to the school. They are getting the messages in a format, in a way that will speak to them.
And again, anecdotally, they are seeing those, like we definitely are, they've mentioned to me, my students I'm working with are seeing some of those messages. So while the bad ones are coming in, the I guess good ones, if you will, are also starting to use some of those channels that they're really on, so that is a positive note.
Sarah?
Yeah.
I have two questions. The first one, you may not know, Dr. Felder, you're new in the district, so you may not know this either. But the first one is, how early are we educating students about the dangers of vaping? Like, where in the curriculum do we talk about that? And then the second is, do you all have thoughts for us about what else we could or should be doing in terms of supporting parents to understand, and sort of in terms of supporting students who have started and want to stop, or things we could be doing in buildings and spaces in order to prevent this?
And I would just like to say that the folks closest to the problem are closest to the solution. I heard listening and learning. You've got young people that we need to listen and learn from, because they're gonna tell you they wanna quit if they are doing it. They also are gonna say, I wanna protect my friends because I see them doing something I don't like. So the students could give you advice on how to help them the best. And then I think that's also for parents as well. Parents have a lot of things that are competing for their time and competing for their families and issues, but I think having conversations and listening and getting those folks that are proximate to the problem to help with the solutions.
And I believe Ms.
Ms.
Cobb
Cobb?
is going to speak to the
Civic
what we
Orange.
do in the district, right, in the grade level
Oh,
that we
great.
can get started.
Great, great.
And we will get out of her way so she can.
I will say too that whatever she's about to say though, when my students do go into the 8th grade classrooms, they know answers to things. Like they know things by now. So they're listening to something at some point before we come in 8th grade. So
Good evening.
Thank you.
So, just a little bit about what we've been doing in the district. So vaping does fall under our tobacco policy, tobacco use policy. So when a student has a first incident or a time when they've been caught vaping or with the paraphernalia, they're offered an alternative to suspension program via the Aspire program, which is an online web-based program that is offered to students in grades 6 through 12. So we do begin educating in middle school with our 6th graders. And that Aspire program consists of web-based school curriculum that has a pre and post test and 5 tests at the end of each module. And the students have to score at least 70% or better on each one before they can move to the next one. And it's available in both English and in Spanish, and it aims to educate students about the dangers of tobacco use, which includes vaping. And we've also have that Aspire online cessation web training for, like I said, first-time offenders. Of course, there are some disciplinary consequences if students do not want to take that because it is optional. We can't force them to do that. We also have a MOU with the SAFE program, and this SAFE program, students and parents are a part of that. Students are given an opportunity to go to that program. They register. They have an intake session with the parents, and they tell them all about the program, what it consists of, and then they go through the program and they complete the program, and throughout the program they are talking to the parents and the students about vaping and or alcohol or drug abuse, whichever one of those things the students are involved in. We also consult with the health department, as they have stated. We train our staff on the newest info and vaping apparatuses. We partner with the health department as much as we possibly can. Some of our schools have partnered with them to do parent information sessions. Our SAFE trainers go into our middle schools yearly and do a training on drug, alcohol, and smoking, which includes vaping. And so they go in and they have a session with those students, and we also do a quit line, which is an 800 number for smoking cessation program, and we provide that to all students and parents as they need that. Also, just keeping in mind that all of these things are optional. We do offer them to students and parents, but they do have to say that they would like to be a part of those things.
Did a couple comments and then questions. The first one that you all mentioned was it sounded, and Trita, you mentioned it earlier, but you're saying you're starting in the 8th grade with the, working with the students. That's way late. That unfortunately I've seen elementary students vaping. In my opinion, we also have to make sure parents can smell the vape. And part of the training has to be that, hey, if you smell something sweet in a bedroom, that something's going on. Or if you're walking behind a child and you see a fog coming out and you know they're not smoking, there's something going on, especially if it's not a cold day.
Just keeping in mind that some of them now are odorless and smokeless with the vaping.
That's making it even harder. And it's not just the nicotine. That's children are ordering THC pens from out west, from California. It's being shipped into the state from California. There is a very, in my opinion, a strong marketing towards children. When you passed around the different apparatuses, this is one where the state is gonna have to step up, hopefully sooner than we did on traditional tobacco, and say, hey, there's something wrong here, and change how we're getting it. There may be a legitimate need for some adults, but in my opinion, there is no legitimate need for a child to be getting this product. It's being laced with THC, and that's usually what they're referring to as dab pens, and then also hemp. But they're ordering and it's being shipped to them to their home. It's not just they're finding it in their bathroom, it's being shipped into their home. The one thing that, from talking to middle school students that I've seen that made the biggest difference, unfortunately, there was a significant fear factor when all of a sudden they said, oh, children are dying. And they did exactly what y'all said. They said they weren't vaping correctly. And they immediately said, hey, I'm not using the hemp product, or I'm not using the THC. So they got the message that there's some dangers, but they're looking for an excuse to use it. So every opportunity, we've got to get out to the students that this is a opportunity for big business to make money.
Sarah?
So the quit line, you said it's provided as they need it. Are there, what does that mean, and how can are there ways for students who proactively like wanna quit?
Yes, they can, if they go to someone in the student support services team, like I said, the Aspire program, or they will refer them to the SAFE program. We have that, so they can be referred to the SAFE program either by student referral, teacher referral, parent referral. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, you know, they got caught smoking or vaping or what have you.
Is there a way for kids to like anonymously do it without needing to go to an adult in the system, or?
To anonymously sign up for,
So
well,
like,
the
whatever,
quit
like the quit line,
number.
or some of these,
Right,
some of
that's
these
the
options
number.
to go try to do it on your own without like notifying.
So
adults.
those are on signs, so they can easily
Okay.
call that number without going to an adult. The
Okay.
SAFE program they do because that does involve family education as well, so,
Mhm.
but the other ones, yes.
Oh, I have one more question, sorry.
Sure.
The Aspire program, do you, track at all, have you looked at like, I don't, it's not like recidivism, but like kids who have gone through that program, like how often do they come back around? Do they get caught vaping again? Like, do we see that that program's effective?
Yes and no, so it is effective with some kids, but, you know, some kids do go back and do it again and get caught a second time, and then they don't go back to the Aspire. That's when we move to the SAFE, because the SAFE program is a little more aggressive and in-depth, with parents being involved in more family and more counseling.
Do a lot of kids, say no to doing the SAFE program?
Yes, yeah,
It sounds intensive, so.
It is a parent approval, so we do have some parents that say no, unfortunately.
So just a couple of comments. I did see this presentation, discussion in one of the high schools, and there were lots of parents' discussion afterwards, and just a couple of things I wanted to bring up from the board that wasn't explicitly said here is that kids are significantly getting addicted at middle school, and parents do not realize what these devices are. Because until you see them, you would say, oh, that's a little USB stick that they need for their computer. Or when I talked to some of the SROs about this, they told me originally they were seeing these little containers in the bathroom and they didn't know what they were. And so they were just collecting them, and then once they realized what it was, they realized, holy cow, we have a huge problem. So, you know, I'm glad to hear we're educating students, but I think the parents need to be educated on how stealthy these devices are and how strong the peer pressure is, because this is a huge problem that is occurring. And I've had a parent tell me that they had no idea that their child was vaping, and the only way they found out was they saw the device and they had it in their hand, and another child in the family asked the parent what they were doing with a Juul. And they're like, what's a Juul? And then that's how they found out. So it is a problem that we've got to go after, especially with the parents.
We do have to figure out how to let the parents know that one of the, that I thought was actually THC. It looks like a little bitty glass perfume bottle that I just figured it was perfume, and it turned out it was THC. That if you had it in a purse or something and they pulled it out, I said, oh, you're gonna put perfume on. But it was actually THC that, and I had no clue. That first time I saw some of this, I didn't have a clue what it was.
I was just gonna step in real quick. So inside your packet, there are two handouts, English and Spanish for parents that tell them what the devices look like, what to be looking out for, what behaviors to be looking for. And there's also one that tells parents how to start the conversation, how to talk to them about what the dangers are. It's almost like a scenario. If your kid says this, you can say that. If your kid says this, you can say that. So those are well marked to the source, and we can resubmit those to you so they can be posted to your webpage and website, just as something that could be a starter. There's also one in there for teachers, coaches, that gives them that advice of to be educated, be on the watch out with the policies, with the signage, with that checking in with the young people. So you've got several parent-related items in the packet.
I think this is great if, when we do middle school, you know, parents coming to middle school, they get something like this, they can actually see the devices. Cause I think until you see it, you just don't know what they are.
The key to it for parents is actually having the little silver case that you set out. I had not seen the one that looks like a Star Trek. I had no idea. And for parents to be able to see that so that we know what to look for makes a difference. I've seen a lot of the other ones, but that's the first time, and the big one where you said lock and load, I haven't seen that. So as a parent, I'd question lock and load, but I'd have missed the Star Trek.
Dr. H?
I think this is another great opportunity, with these comments of the superintendent, that the videography class at Cedar Ridge High School could, in conjunction with the folks from the health department and with Sharita, and maybe a few counselors in the Orange County schools, put together an informative video, probably for the benefit of parents, more than kids.
Yeah, it's as a parent, it's a benefit of me because I'm looking and I wouldn't have a clue on one of them I saw tonight.
And your policy specifically states that the administration shall consult with the county health department and other appropriate organizations, provide students with information and access and so on and so forth. And there's a notice provision, put notice and signs around and so on and so forth. But the signs mention e-cigarettes at this point, or are they still just no smoking? They do say e-cigarette?
Yeah.
Great.
Because they send us updated ones.
Great, fantastic. Thank you.
All right, thank y'all. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Mr. Benedict with the School Adequate Public Facility Ordinance, or SAPFO. Thank you for being patient.
Problem. Proud parent of two Orange County graduates. Both went to year-round school, one Hillsborough Elementary and one Standback. Thank you for inviting me tonight. My name is Craig Benedict. I'm the Orange County Planning and Specials Director. I've been there for over 20 years and worked with some of the people in this room back in the early 2000s to get together a school adequate public facility ordinance known as SAPFO, a little bit shorter. A school adequate public facility ordinance, just to give you a little background before I get into the purpose of tonight's meeting, was a way of monitoring the capacity of schools, monitoring the enrollment in those schools and doing projections forward, a way of monitoring how much development is occurring in the county, and then using student generation rates to try to calculate roughly what type of impacts will be from new development, and putting those two things together to monitor the pace of growth. One of the visuals I used back in the early 2000s was I Love Lucy and the conveyor belt with the chocolates. You know, to make sure that the conveyor belt, if this program moves the conveyor belt and bringing those new kids from development into the schools, if the conveyor belt is going at the right pace, then you can adequately think ahead and get that box prepared for them to put the kids in school. If that conveyor belt moves too fast, it can get messy. The way the SAPFO was put together originally, there was a lot of assumptions, and I think those assumptions now, 16 years later, are being questioned. But the building capacity, it's based with the Department of Public Instruction about the size and shape of the schools and what rooms are used for. And it recognized that with all those assumptions, and they're not all listed here, that we do not include portable classrooms as capacity, because you do not want to put children in portable classrooms as a as a stopgap to show that you have capacity, you want to have that, as an indication that you need to either enlarge the school or build a new school. Also, we realize that there may be changes, legislative changes in school classroom size. And so they anticipated and created this element known as the School Joint Action Committee, SJAC, to analyze how to take legislative changes, classroom size changes, and phase them in over time. If you make a change in schools too fast, you'll see in the various projection methodologies that you may need a school sooner than later if you also need to make some dramatic changes. This SJAC committee is just short term because of the two House bills that we have moving through our system, causing both school districts to decrease from what was at one classroom for 21 to 20 to 19 to 18 to 17 over the next few years. That can really change the capacity of the schools, which were originally rated, and this will be another brief topic of our discussion tonight, this prototypical school, which was anticipated as 585 students. And that's not that you have very many elementary schools that have that capacity each, but when some of the newer schools were built, that was the capacity that you tried to achieve. The SJAC was formed. We had a representative from the Chapel Carborough School of Education. Dr. Hal Kiotis served as a representative of this board, and Penny Rich, the chair of our county commission, was also served on that committee. And we met with the finance departments, the manager's office, the planning department, and school staff to start taking a look very deeply into how school capacity is in the schools. And we found some, let's say, aberrations over time on how one school district may have counted and the other school district may not have counted. And we're beginning to standardize that so it's apples to apples with how we count capacity. SJAC took a look at the impacts. Here are the different changes that are occurring over the next few years up to 2021, 22. We reviewed some of the projections from the past, and we reviewed some implementation options, which we'll get into a little bit deeper. The purpose of tonight's meeting is the SJAC comes up with some rough recommendations, nothing chosen yet. After we had that collaboration meeting between the chairs of both boards and the county commission, they said, take what they've heard in this SJAC committee and the collaboration committee, bring it to the full boards. Last Thursday night I was at the Chapel Carborough School Board, and I'm here tonight. Eventually, you'll get some of these ideas of some of the options that there are to keep this program healthy, the SAPFO ordinance healthy, and to maybe address some of the issues that have even been mentioned earlier tonight. There are no formal recommendations that you'll see tonight, but you'll see kind of a list of options, and then also a list of some things that may not be considered, at least by the SJAC committee. Now this is something you've probably seen in your packages once a year. This is how we do projections. Now it's not going to work on the screen there, but let's see if this laser works on the screen. Probably will blow the screen out. Better not do that.
Right. The county can buy us another one.
Okay, well, I'll show just over top. The top line shows the school year. The first row going across shows the school year. Above that, it shows the ratio of class size, 1 to 21, 20, 20, right down to 17. The actual enrollment is on that line, and you just see 3 items in there under actual enrollment. And November 15th of each year, both school districts provide us the actual membership in those classrooms. The line just below that in pink and heading out towards future years are the product of 5 different models, projection models that are averaged, and you come up with future projections. The line below that, under the first 3, you see the actual changes in membership that have occurred each November 15th, parentheses meaning that there's been some decrease in enrollment, and then the projections out show eventually in future years increasing enrollment from 30, 24, 50, 49, 47. So you see increasing enrollment in the future. The 5 different models, we've taken a look at what they call the 3, 5, and 10-year cohort model. We actually take a look at graduation rates from prior years. The 3-year cohort is very reactionary. You get a spike in enrollment or a major decrease in enrollment, and then it would make sense. So we soften the model by using 3 models and then 2 linear extrapolation models. And the averages are becoming reasonable over the years, enough to be a good predictor of the need for a new school about 4 or 5 years in the future. Now, we've had this going on for 16 years. We haven't built any new schools lately, but it has been a good predictor. 5 years or so is enough to find the site if you don't have it, get the site plan, build it, and hopefully get the children to school. One of the most important elements of this chart here is what's shown in yellow. If the yellow is where the schools altogether would go over capacity, let me back up that it doesn't go elementary school by elementary school and gauge capacity. It adds all the elementary schools together, and then that's 100% of what a DPI capacity would be, and it does 105% over that. That's another one of those assumptions that was come to a determination back in 2002 and 2003, that 105% of rated capacity is an acceptable level of service. Might not be your opinion in 2019, but that's acknowledging that one school, individual elementary school, might be 110% of capacity, one might be 90% of capacity. So this 105 was, kind of a moving average. For middle schools, it's 107% of capacity. For high schools, 110% of capacity. There's not too many school adequate public facility ordinances at all in North Carolina, and the ones that are in various other locations, whether it be Florida or up in Maryland, the typical percentages that's allowed to go over is a lot more than 105, 107, 10, upwards to 175% of capacity. That's how difficult it is in those growing school districts.
Can I ask really quickly if we can move the slide to Orange County schools instead of Chapel Hills County schools, so that people, city schools, so that.
There we go.
Yeah, I was wondering why
Yeah.
you were looking at that.
I thought he was just explaining it.
Me too.
Well, I just
No,
thought
it's
since
a
we're.
very good
saying.
point, it's a very good point.
I rolled these both in together. I was supposed to have some slides pushed back. Well, here's the capacities. So you see the second magenta line down there where it has actual changes, increases or decreases. You see decreases in 16-17 and 17-18. You see an increase in 18-19. Then you see gradual increases in enrollment projected as you move into future years. It shows within the 10-year time horizon here. There's no yellow on this chart like there was on this other one.
Right.
It shows that it would be 10 years plus out.
Okay, before we go off this one, so that I have clarity on what I'm looking at, when we look at the percentage usage, if we have students in a mobile classroom, where are they on here?
The students are counted as enrollment.
Okay.
So that, we know how many are in that school and enrolled, that we are not counting the square footage of the building as a rated capacity for the school. So if the school had a capacity of 585, that would be absent any portable classrooms that may be out in the.
Okay, so if we have an elementary school that has a mobile classroom, you're basically saying that, that you're not showing that that's overcrowded.
No, it would show it's overcrowded. It would show.
I just want to make sure it's gonna
Yeah.
show it's overcrowded.
Well-
Or you go ahead.
Hold on, I don't think that's completely true if there were pre-K at that happens.
I'm getting ready
So
to
I'm
have
sorry, I
to-
just wanted to insert that
Yeah.
technical
Now,
detail,
Now,
because.
the next question is gonna go into pre-K. We have pre-K students at our schools because parents want them at the school. That's showing as capacity of that school, that classroom, square footage. That square footage is showing as capacity of that, school. Is that pre-K enrollment showing as capacity being used at that elementary school?
No.
No, it's not. Second
So that's
question.
one of the assumptions that
But
went into
it's
2003.
it's not, in my opinion, it's not a valid assumption. I'll go ahead and state it. Second one is, if it's an EC classroom, if we have legal requirements that you can only have so many students in that classroom, do you base it on the legal requirement that we can only have X number of students in that classroom because of the way it's used? Or you say, based on that classroom size, you can have 22 students in it?
We use it based on the Department of Public Instruction, and the reports that come from your, school board staff on how many students are allowed in those classrooms of about whatever, use they're for.
Okay,
So
so
it's a
these
kind of a-
numbers recognize specific requirements. The only ones that we're missing right now is pre-K, if I understand correctly.
That would be.
Well, let's let Dr.
That's correct.
Intercede.
That's, so when we, the worksheets that I used this year to calculate the numbers that we presented for SAPFO are the same worksheets that Mr. Abley has used over the past couple of years. You're exactly right. They do take into account separate setting classrooms for EC students.
Okay.
And we calculate them based on the size of the capacity for that separate setting class. And also specials, things like that. It's just pre-K.
It's just pre-K. Next question, we use some of our classrooms for our nurses, some for our counselors. Is that capacity assumed as being available for students? Jake, you can answer it now.
It would be assumed.
Yeah, so if it's not used for an instructional purpose, like a specials class, art, music, or PE, or EC set aside, or separate setting, excuse me, then it would be treated in terms of the overall, that it would be treated in the capacity numbers as you could fit 25 additional students.
But is that, where are we gonna put the nurses?
We would have to find an alternative location.
Do we have an alternative
It
location?
depends on the site.
It depends on the site. Next question is, when we get into the numbers, when do the numbers really drop down to 1 to 17? 2021, 2022. When that happens, 2022, that's roughly a year and a half away. Are those numbers in here now?
Yes, this does show that in
At
21,
1 to
22,
17.
1 to 17.
1 to 17.
You lose about, I think, it was about 125 student capacity per year. So just from where you are now to 1 to 17, you lose 375 students just for the classroom size change. And that's about 3/5 of a school. So that shows you how much you lose just for
We're
class
losing
size
from
change.
3/5 of the school in 2021. And we have schools that we have closed right now. We have students in mobile classrooms, and we do have a school that has capacity. But I'm concerned this is not really showing how we are using our square footage. That's my concern. Whether it's for nurses or counselors, which we need, or whether it's for pre-K, which we need. And unless we recognize how we're really using that square footage, we're missing that we don't have the capacity everybody is saying that we have.
I would say that this discussion that we're approaching now, and especially with the School Joint Action Committee, that some of the assumptions that were there to get to this very good ordinance that kept us afloat for many years, there was some negotiations. Pre-K, even though it was starting out back 16 years ago, I think it's a lot more important nowadays, and even part of the federal mandate. So there's a companion policy called the School Construction Standards. And that school construction standard said, how will the school be used? And so what we're talking about now with using it for different purposes, pre-K possibly, it's probably a recommendation that will be coming out that we're gonna have to take a look at the school construction standards to say how would a new school be used? Is it the same square footage of 100,000 square foot at one point could house 585 kids, and now maybe it's 495 if you say part of that X amount of school size, the same size if you say, would now accommodate less children if you use it for other purposes that are agreed upon by all parties. So I think there does need to be some examination. The primary reason for the School Joint Action Committee to be put together was because of legislative changes. And of course, as soon as the discussion came up about what, class size changes and what you do in the schools, the pre-K issue came up. Each year, over the last 16 years, there's a report that's known as the SAPFO Technical Advisory Committee Report. And in there, it has mentioned the impact of pre-K in the schools, even though it's not being specifically counted or reducing the usable area of the school for the kindergarten through 5th grade students that are there. It has been recognized. So I think it's come to a head now that you're gonna have to take a look at class size reductions, the use of the school for other purposes, and pre-K. But the specific focus for the reason for the SJAC being formed was the legislative changes. And the legislative changes is something that does affect DPI capacity, which is one of the ways to rate the schools, and pre-K, is now entering into the equation.
Sarah?
I just have a question about the numbers here. So in 2017-18, the 100%, the capacity went down from 3694 to 3361, and then the next year it went up to 3740.
Yeah.
What happened there?
That there was, the way it was calculated was a mistake in 1 year, and this is where we're starting to standardize. So it went down and then it bounced back up again because we said we have to actually include the square footage and the capacity where those pre-K children are. So this happened in both schools, where at one point when we started, seeing the impacts, we found out in that specific 17-18 school year that they had pulled that square footage out and actually decreased the capacity of all of the schools across the board, and that's where you saw 300
so
less.
Okay, so the 18-19 is a correction of that, okay.
I still think there's some work to be done. We're working with your new staff member. Patrick's still around also. We're making sure the way he counted apples here, he's counting apples down there in Chapel.
Dr. H?
Well, without reliving the past, because now we're going back a significant number of years. But reliving the immediate past, when Chair Stevens asked me to be the board rep for SJAC, well, I attended the meetings religiously, reported back to the entire board in public session. And in April, the staff that was there from your office, and I think you'll recall this, had us projected for a new school in 21-22. You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And then, well, let me finish now. This is not any kind of an attack. It is merely a simple soul trying to figure out the mysteries of planning. And they are mysterious. But I'm trying to find out what's really going on here. So we reported that back to the board. There was glee and joy in the eyes of all of our board members. They were thrilled. Oh, a new school is coming. We report back to the May meeting, and Ronnie Darcy was representing Chapel Hill Carver. She was there for every meeting. I was there for Orange County Schools. And in May, suddenly everything changed. We were no longer having a vision of a new school coming online. And it seems that there was an abrupt change. Never could quite figure out why this happened. Then, if my memory serves me well, actually my memory is pretty good. Okay, I can document my life back for a long time. We were told there was going to be another SJAC meeting before the joint school collaboration meeting took place. Not the big one, but that meeting never took place. And then, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, the joint collaboration meeting between the two school board chairs and vice chairs and the manager, et cetera, that never took place.
It was rescheduled.
Hold on. My point cannot be deterred by others now. You gotta be patient.
Okay.
So what happened here was it ended up, you guys just had a meeting, a giant meeting, okay, where the two school systems were outnumbered by staff from the county, all right? And we're handed another plate. I'm merely trying to figure out what happened here, okay? Because something has transpired here, and I want to make sure the Orange County schools are not being somehow or other put away on a little shelf somewhere, okay? This thing with EC children and this thing with pre-K children, and everybody, I think, finally understands the importance of educating children as quickly as possible, all right? Has been debated for over 35 years in this county, and it's still being debated. And I think the debate needs to stop. The quicker we can get these little kids in, it was once more at 4. I think you should do even more at 3, or grab them at 2, or make daycare meaningful. Do something. But we shouldn't be fighting these battles all the time, arguing over numbers. This is totally crazy. So can you tell me tonight, why were we told we were gonna have a new school 21-22 in April, then in May, it was dashed? Our ship sank and no warning bells were given. What happened?
I brought some extra slides here.
Ah.
This is the way the numbers were submitted at a time roughly in April, was excluding the pre-K classroom capacity. And this would have showed, this is a different chart than what you saw previously. This is Orange County Schools. It showed that you would need one in 22-23 if you took out the capacity that's being used for pre-K. So and we did not know that the numbers, you saw the numbers that one year jumped up and down, is because they took the capacity out really, and they should not have taken the pre-K capacity out.
Say that one again. I think it's real important what you just said.
It's, the way capacity is rated in the schools is to include the capacity where the pre-K children may be as being used and counted for K through 5.
So pre-K students should be counted, which gets us back closer to, is this slide in our presentation?
So,
I think you
It's
said,
not-
I thought you
it's
said
not in
they
our
should be counted, they should
Can I-
be counted.
Okay, any children in schools besides pre-K are
Besides
counted,
pre-K.
even if they're in portable classrooms. If they are, if the pre-K is inside the school and they're using, let's say, 500 square feet of the school, that 500 square feet is used and counts as capacity for other K through 5 children.
Okay.
So that will, let's say, maybe artificially make you think that there's more space in the schools for the K through 5.
Should the pre-K have been pulled out of how we're utilizing our
No,
elementary
it
schools?
should not have, because the memorandum of understanding adopted in 2003 by this school board and the other school board says that pre-K will not, the capacity cannot be used for pre-K.
Okay, so you're saying that it was legitimate to not count, for them to stop counting our pre-K students?
Yes,
that we-
it was legitimate.
Okay, I wanna make that clear. Can I go with
Can I
you?
finish?
Yes, sir.
Who's the they?
The school board staff of both schools filling out those charts that
Oh, both
provide.
school board staffs were at fault here, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the tables that were submitted to us on November 15th each year had a change in capacity. And they get signed by the superintendent, the prior superintendent in both school districts, and they had changed their calculations of how they did it from previous years.
So my understanding is that the staff adequately tried to present how we're actually using our schools, and then when they were asked how they did it, they identified pre-K and they removed it, and therefore it now looks like we have
So
capacity.
the staff from both school systems, is that what you're saying?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, but our staff, yeah.
Sure, please.
Throw the mud out there.
This will probably have to be a conversation offline that Mr. Benedict and I have to have. I will tell you that the SAPFO numbers I submitted on November 15th match the 3361. We did take into account the fact that there are pre-K students in our buildings, but we did not calculate them in our numbers. We went by the ratios that you have up there. It's documented that when the initial drop of 3361 was made, it was to reflect that the state instituted the 1-to-20 ratio in one of our reports. And so with the calculation worksheets that I've used and after having conversations with Patrick, I don't know exactly what happened in April and May, but our numbers we submitted this year were closer to the 3361. And we can look at those numbers together, I can show you the process I used to calculate them. However, I would argue that that 3361 is the accurate number, and not 3740.
Does that 3361 include our pre-K?
No, sir.
Okay, so whether we count it or not, we have our pre-K students. Where do we put them? We have to have a facility to meet our parents' request to have our pre-K at our schools.
In federal mandate.
And we have in some cases we do,
Yeah.
so we
Now,
have to.
that's the one question. The other one I wanna go back to is, I think it's your second slide, purpose. And it's the second main bullet item. It includes the staff support of Orange County Manager's Office, Orange County Planning Department, Orange County Schools, and Chapel Hill Carver. I understand that. But we're one of our big growth areas in our part of the district right now. We have two big growth areas right now. Where are they represented on this?
Yes, Jack was within the memorandum of understanding, it said who the membership would be.
Yeah,
So-
all I'm trying to do is get out that some of this is saying, hey, this was done a long time ago. Okay, one thing that came out 17 years ago. I wasn't here 17 years ago. And I'm saying that knowing what's happening in Hillsborough and Mebane, if we ignore, and every time that we have this discussion about this, we have never have been successful in bringing Mebane into our growth numbers. And as we redo this understanding, I personally think we have to figure out how to get Mebane into this and participate. They're growing into our county. The industry is growing in Mebane. They are building new subdivisions. So we have to figure out how to recognize how Mebane is affecting our school district, along with recognizing that pre-K is in our buildings.
I believe your answer will be that we have to change the MOU.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And-
mean,
We need it on agenda.
Well, it is on the joint collaboration meeting, and that will be a huge focus item to get that changed.
and I think all of those elements of the MOU, you know, portable classrooms, you know, what the capacity of school is, I think we'll have a list of them there. So, needless to say, I'm somewhat of the messenger here. I'm going by what was said.
And we appreciate
I was
you
here
taking the
2003,
message and
so
receiving
blame
it.
me.
You can bring these messages back.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
You know, so I say in the planning field that, you know, every 5-10 years, you should like bring it back up and say, is there any, we have probably mentioned for, well, 35 years, that we've mentioned that the pre-K element is an issue out there. You know, I think I answered some of the questions there, but let me just go into some of the options on what can be done in the future, and then I can still take some more questions. I think it was the chair that asked, you know, can you show a graphic? I know we get mixed in all these numbers, so we put a graphic there. Let me get to the Orange County schools. You know, the original school class size was like elementary school capacity of 585, and you know, when you change the class size down, you see how it decreases. One thing to kind of answer what Jake had mentioned about the school chart, the number that he gave may be the right number, and if that's the right number, then the previous 13 years were wrong. So that's what we're trying to reconcile now. You know, why did it go up and down? We just have to make sure we're all.
But that was because of the change. The state mandated the ratio of class size to change. That explains why it'd be different from 13 previous years. New legislation requires smaller class size. The numbers should change at that point.
And so it went from 1 to 21 to 1 to 20. That change showed a 333 student decrease, which is, that's a big number for, that would be a big number change for just a one-person class size
So,
capacity change.
I do want to point out that Orange was more aggressive on addressing the classroom size than what was state mandated. So that may be some of the reason, I mean, I don't have the data in front of me, but I do know that's why we didn't request 8 new teachers last year, because we had already started down that road.
We had, what's the capacity at Central Elementary?
Central capacity?
Yep.
That Central is
Floston Elementary School right there, 375 students. That's in 1 year.
Yeah. So one of these later slides that I showed here, and are not in your packet because we're not supposed to be directly talking about the pre-K here tonight, because SJAC was formed, but this was the slide that shows if you took the pre-K classroom capacity out, you would show in 22, 23, you would be exceeding the 105%, and this would show the need for a school sooner than later.
So I just wanna point out, that is the total of all the schools.
Yes.
It doesn't show that the ones with pre-K already may be at capacity.
That's correct.
So, just wanna
Another assumption.
point that out
You
for the
add
full
them all
board.
together.
Dr. H?
I would maintain that in an ideal situation, if we're really interested in helping children, we would have an unlimited pre-K program for every pre-K child in the Orange County School District, and that's 300 square miles. Now, any county commissioner would want to stand up and say they wouldn't support something like that? I'm not asking you for a comment, I know your position. This is a political issue is what it is. If you really want to help people, you will find a place for every pre-K child in this county. That's the bottom line. And not play number games for 35 years. We don't have this, we don't have that. If you've got money for a new jail going up, you've got money for a new school going up. If you've got money to put in $500,000 to study global warming, you've got money to repair our schools. And I'm not beating up on you, Craig, you're just doing your job. But school people need to know too, and we have a new superintendent. New principal comes in, they don't have the authority to go in and take a classroom and turn it into something else. They need to consult with the superintendent, who consults with the operations person. This is sacred ground. This is serious stuff. The county is holding us accountable, as they should, for the proper use of the square footage. But the county also needs to understand, we've got a whole host of little kids coming here that need help. We've got parents who need help. We've got parents who don't have $1,400, $1,600 a month to put their children in upscale daycare centers around here, okay? If you're talking about equal opportunity, then we need to make sure we have it, and that's where we should spend our money.
Okay, now, I'm just gonna get it out, because everybody needs to be prepared. We have had a waiting list at our schools for pre-K at the beginning of the year. We are turning students away for pre-K. And it's probably 2 to 3 classrooms that we're turning away. This is for people watching, that they have to hear, we have a need for pre-K in the schools. We want to expand it to younger children, which means we have to have capacity for pre-K. And to ignore that we are providing that service and not count those students is doing a disservice to our pre-K students and the parents that we're trying to serve. We are serving our parents. We have waiting lists for pre-K at the beginning of every year since I've been on the board. Parents find something else, but it's obvious if we have waiting lists at the beginning of the year, parents want their students in the school. And those pre-K aren't called pre-K, they're called pre-K students. And I would love to see us expand it to 3 years old. I think legally we can do it to 3.5, but we need to expand it. There is a need. I'll be quiet now.
Okay, the only thing I'll add, and the answer is not to take them out of the schools.
It's not.
And not because of everything we've heard, the additional financial hit we would take to have additional office staff, nurses, counselors, that we get to leverage economies of scales of having them in the schools, transportation. It makes no sense to even think that that would be a viable option for us. But any other comments before we let you continue, hopefully?
There may be some concluding remarks, and I'll say I'm encouraged that the same interests in the school district that I hear from board members is the same interest that I hear in running government the best it can be. So it's good to hear that you're advocating for your needs, and I will carry these messages back. Let me go through some of the things that at least the SJAC has said at this time would not be viable. The whole SAPFO system, the idea would be if it ever gets to the point where a school was, or all the schools together were over capacity, 105%, then you could tell a development that you cannot build this year, you can't build next year, but hopefully you would see that coming and you would either increase the size of a school or build a new school. So the purpose of SAPFO wasn't necessarily to shut down development. Some people may want that. That was a big debate, many years ago. But it is to pace and defer development and give adequate time to put together a viable capital improvement program to plan for new schools or increasing capacity. And that's what has tried to be the purpose. If presently, if you decrease class size, you do not have to build school immediately in the first chart that was shown. If the MOU is changed and pre-K is added in, then it would show the need for a school as soon as 22, 23. We know we probably cannot build a school by 22, 23. So
I'd like to try.
you wouldn't, some of the options that come up there, if you change these regulations and the capacity changes, then a decision has to be made by this group, the other Board of Education, and the county commissioners, what to do when the first development comes along that rings the bell, as we say. So some of the options that were evaluated by the SJAC are as shown here. Let me just go through these.
Nah, before you jump on, because you've hit one that I strongly disagree with. And it's going back to Mebane. You said that, hey, we'll just tell them they can't build the subdivision. So you're gonna go to Mebane and tell them they can't build the subdivision because we don't have capacity?
It wouldn't work with Mebane because they're not a party to the agreement.
Are they building houses in our school district?
Yes, they are.
Are you gonna stop them?
We count the children when they
come
into the
in.
schools.
But you're not.
We use them for
Are we
projections showing the
anticipating,
need
with all the
for
subdivisions
Please,
that are going
please, let one
I'm
speak at a
sorry.
time, please.
This is, but are we counting the projections based on what they're building? I mean, to say, I'm just getting a lot off my mind. To say that you're gonna stop, the only place you can stop them building subdivision, because if you stop in Hillsborough, all they're gonna do is go over to Mebane and build it where they can do it the way they want to. And Mebane's going to. So we've got to pull Mebane into it.
Okay.
So some of the options that at least the SJAC at this time have eliminated was to get rid of the CAPS issuance process. CAPS is a Certificate of Adequate Public Schools. To get rid of that process completely, which means when a new development comes in, you would ignore you wouldn't be issuing that certificate to the subdivision. So that would be a way of really getting rid of the whole SAPFO system, so that wasn't a consideration. Another idea that would not have the bell ring sooner than later would be change the level of service from 105%, you could go up to 107% or 110%. The SJAC said, let's not just artificially change the percentage to make it look like you have more capacity in the schools. So that was eliminated by the SJAC. These are all options that have been done in different SAPFO systems around the country. Allowed modular, mobile, or temporary classrooms to be included in the capacity numbers. It was suggested to not include them in the capacity numbers. Again, coordinate on how, if you could move special classrooms or what's considered non-classroom capacity space to modulars or mobile or temporary classrooms. They said that's not a good idea either. Because the school would be for students and those special activities would be into, that was not recommended either. These next three, even though they're not considered in the short term, there are some viable elements of these here. Is fund renovations to increase the capacity of schools, or fund renovations in the school with permanent school buildings, or fund the construction of a new elementary school. The reason that hasn't been considered exactly right now is because the reports that have come from both school districts we need to maintain the schools, we need to upgrade the schools, and most likely maybe increase capacity as those come forward. The fund renovations in the recommendations that have been come forward and will be discussed as part of the February meeting, there was a rendition of that where it said create some swing space or some sort of a place where you could handle additional capacity.
So, I just have to say this, I don't know how we can fund renovations when we have such a massive maintenance debt. I don't, that makes no sense to me why we would add on to a school when we have such a large need. So this will be interesting to hear how we would physically do this.
Yeah, and that's, I think some of the feedback we got was exactly, this is still under we don't think this is feasible, but at least they examined it. So this list here about funding renovations, knowing there's maintenance, it has been, at least at this time, eliminated by the School Joint Action Committee.
I do have one other question. You talked about caps. So we get, when a new development comes, we get a report sent to us that we have to sign, and there's an estimate given for how many kids are gonna be produced. How is that estimate done? Because, I mean, I think I saw one that had.
3.
Yeah, it was like 1.5 kids out of 100 units, and I'm like, how is this possible, right? And our options were we sign it and agree, or we don't sign it and you build it. So I'm just curious how that number is created.
There is actually calculations based on all the units in Orange County, all the new units that come online, how many we work with your school board staff to find out what the address is, and we actually do an address matching activity to find out for single family. Now, one single family project might, have 2 kids, another one might have half a kid.
Yeah, no,
We're thinking about
it was 1.5 kids.
But no, there are very. That's probably a half, I don't know.
How you measure that?
Yeah. But it is, in order to have a SAPFO ordinance, in order to have, what we used to have is an impact fee, which was separate than this. We calculated impact fees based on what they call a rational nexus between the students that came out of certain housing types, and even drilled down to the amount of bedrooms in these certain housing types to find out, and that's what is a product of those, what you see on those charts. What happened to be somewhat of the harbinger of some changes, and as you mentioned earlier tonight, the demographic changes. We're trying to find more children coming out of multifamily 3 and 4 bedroom units than we saw of even your standard smaller size single family. And that on our impact fees, we're gonna, show that relationship. But we're still able to use that science of where the children, what housing they come from, and use that to do part of the caps issuance still.
So I just think the caps are very underestimated based on what I saw.
We'll show you one of the reports, not that validates one way or the other, it's just that's the science that we had to put behind it and actually count the numbers.
So this could be, I imagine this will be another item we can discuss during the joint meeting?
The student generation rate?
Yeah, the caps and calculations.
Okay, yes, the
and-
caps, that will be part of it.
Because what I don't want is we fix this, but we have a different problem here, and now we're not anticipating the growth correctly. And although we have these projections, we're gonna end up in the same state because we're using low data at the beginning or the end. So, anyway, please continue.
I think we're down to just 2 more slides. These are the options that are still being explored. We think that we'll continue to receive information from both schools about what the enrollment is. We'll continue to do projections forward with the children from the children that do attend the schools. But the CAPS test, we can actually continue informally to do the CAPS test, but not stop development if the bell rings, if we change classroom size. That's one of the options that are out there. With this decision, there's 4 little sub-paragraphs to that. Continue with the pre-K discussions. If we were to include pre-K capacity in the schools, you would see the need for schools in one case 3 years from now, in one case 4 or 5 years from now. And if the bell was to ring because we stopped development, it's very possible that somebody could look at us and say, get rid of the ordinance, similar to what happened with our school impact fees. So we want to be very cautious with having that bell ring, and now one of the purposes of the adequate public facility ordinance is to say we have a need for schools, and then get together a CIP to find out where to find the money and increase capacity. That element of it is still alive and well. Of course, it takes collaboration and politics to get across the finish line there. So that's one of the options that are out there. You could, option 2 is discontinue the CAPS test altogether. That is a little bit hollow. We still have the CIP planning stage, which is very important, and then the CAPS test, whether there's value in that or not. Probably staff will be still keeping track of what type of housing is occurring, in both areas. And then option 3 is fund the construction of some sort of school swing space, and how would that be accomplished, with the finances out there now. But this school swing space would be in each district. It'd be a way of having, whether it's pre-K all in one location or it's pre-K in the same school, that would yet to be, but that's just one of the concepts out there. I think that will be, before we get to the February meeting, this concept of school swing space will be elaborated more with the joint staffs to see how that could work. Where we are right now is we've had, we're starting to do the 2020 SAPFO TAF report, which is not directly related to this, except some of the numbers that are included in here. We had the presentation to both school boards in December. In January, we will discuss it more with that technical advisory committee, which is the staff committee of both school boards, and also includes the towns as part of that discussion there to let us know what's going on. And then in February, I think February 25th would be the joint meeting of both schools, and to some sort of final recommendation that would be plugged into the next November 15th, 2020 and forward.
So is that meeting in January gonna include Mebane?
Mm-hmm. Each year, we always include Mebane, Hillsborough, Chapel and Carrboro, our finance department, the people that do membership calculations and things like that. That SAPFO TAC committee has been meeting for those 16 years to discuss what's come online and what concerns they have. In the past, we talked about the changing demographic of the middle or the multifamily, and that's why we readdressed the student generation that's coming out of multifamily, so we could have a better idea. We took a look at, and we have some statistics on, and this is this is kind of averaged out, but any specific project could have more or less. Every year, roughly, we send over our SAPFO ordinance to Mebane and say, come on down. And there hasn't been a response to date. The discussions are ongoing.
So right now, Mebane's not participating.
So that's the end of my presentation.
Dr. Hayes?
Just one quick question. For all the years that SAPFO's been in place, how many building permits have ever been denied because of CAPS?
0.
That's all. You don't need to say anything else. So it really is a ghost threat in reality. Chapel Hill Carrboro Board brought it up maybe 15 years ago, and everybody got upset down there. The realtors got upset, the builders got upset. Then I think they did it deliberately just to stir up the pot a little bit. Because if you really wanna raise some hairs, start canceling building permits based on school numbers. And you'll see something come out of Raleigh if those same people are still running the legislature.
And the only thing that was, there was a few years where it was close in Chapel Carborough, but there wasn't capacity in 1 year,
Yeah.
and the project couldn't happen that year because it still had to build. And then it happened that the enrollment actually went down in the school, which freed up capacity. So it was close for the bell ringing, and it would have had to be a deferral for that project to come online a year or 2 years later. But that was, because of capacity or enrollment changes, it was able to be accommodated. But again, there's two elements to it. One is how does it pace growth, but I would say the more important element is identifying the need for capital capacity changes, and identifying that enough years in advance that you can plan for, find the money, and make these capacity changes. And that it has done very well with.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for coming this evening. You're always willing to listen. But when we have a situation like we've got in town here, where huge developments are being stamped, and nobody from the school system has an opportunity for meaningful input. You know, it's easy to make a decision when the repercussions, you're not gonna face the repercussions. We're the ones that have to worry about building a school. We have to go to the county commissioners. This is where all elected officials need to be sitting at the same table and talking. That's the bottom, and it hasn't happened.
So, I guess this is more just a comment and something for the board to be aware of more than anything, but the SAPFO MOU, the second to the last paragraph say, the parties acknowledge that this memorandum of understanding is not intended to and does not create legally binding obligations on any part of the parties to act in accordance with any of its provisions. And I just think that that is quite a statement. So I just think that that's something we need to take into our joint session to talk about also.
Any other comments from anyone? So I would like to thank you as well, and definitely the message we would like to send back is the MOU needs to change to account for our pre-K.
And I feel, since it's Christmas season, I feel like running out of here like Macaulay Culkin. That's what I'll do.
That might be appropriate.
Thank you.
Yes, I would say, to a certain degree, I heard similar comments at the meeting last Thursday night. But it's good to hear that you have a lot of interest in providing educational opportunities for the children in Orange County.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Craig. Yeah.
I agree. So board, we will not finish the agenda tonight. I would like any motions or considerization what we would like to cover next to ensure we cover it.
Do we have to make the decisions around discretionary transfers tonight? I feel like there's some sort of policy there.
We could present that in we need to approve it by the end of January, so we
Okay.
can present, and sorry if I'm not out of order, we do have one with guest presenters here tonight.
Yeah.
And I would
Yes.
appreciate
Oh,
if he could
Yes.
have a chance to present and then come back.
Yes, that's why I brought that up. Is the board
What about-
willing to do that?
Yes.
So what about the capital investment, is that one that
We
would
can
be
bring that
deferred?
back next meeting, right?
We're
Yeah,
gonna
be
defer.
deferred.
Yeah.
That's just
Defer.
Okay,
Defer
and
to
the
air
naming
quality.
wasn't an action item anyway, right?
We're gonna
What
move
about
to
the
the
core, I
air-
just wanted just the course edition, the superintendent, I just wanna make sure nothing is,
The course editions piece, I think we do need.
Yeah,
to
we
do
do
the
the
course
course
editions.
edition.
by per policy, need to be done before January.
okay, that's what okay, so, yeah. So we're gonna do the course editions and the indoor air quality, are those the two that we're gonna keep?
Yes, let me just pull the board. Have y'all reviewed the additions? I know many of you were in the.
I'm good with them.
Good.
So why don't we come up and do that, because I think the air quality will take longer and I would hate to miss that opportunity.
So could we?
Not from you, from us.
Can we just do a motion to table the capital investment plan, the naming of the corporate drive, the student capacity membership ones?
Yep, motion.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we have amended.
Thank you.
All
Course
right.
edition.
Good evening. Per policy 3105, the addition and elimination of course offerings for Orange County Schools is to be reviewed by the board prior to January 1. And I'm going to let Ms. Braxton start with her CTE courses that you can see on your agenda.
So in lieu of time, you do have this entire document with the cover page at the front, and then behind the cover page, the details. The courses that are being recommended are very specific, just to go along with pathways. I enjoyed speaking at the student achievement meeting where we talked about Perkins 5 and the career pathways. Career pathways are going to be 2 courses, maybe 3 courses, not 4 courses any longer. And because of that, that is going to demand that we add those second levels, which you see in 3 areas. And then also some realignment of some of our program areas, which is requiring that we add some courses. Do you have any questions?
Motion to approve.
Is that?
Oh, so sorry.
I do, the finance class, is that yours?
That's gonna be me.
Okay.
Because that was,
Social studies.
that was
Yep.
removed
Okay.
from
Oh, that's right. Social
CTE
studies.
on October the 18th.
Yes, ma'am, okay, great.
So holding your motion, this would all be one motion, so you've got
Correct.
a little bit more. I'm sorry.
So can we,
I said fine.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have for you, on this same sheet at the very bottom, there are the state course editions. There are 4 courses I wanna share with you. The first course is a Math 4 course, which is a result of the change in the new standards from the 2019 school year in mathematics. Really is pulling elements from discrete mathematics, pre-calculus, as well as Math 3 into an additional course. We currently have department chairs and other members of our staff working on that course. The additional courses past that are the really new things. There is a course called a CCRG, standing for Community College Ready Graduate. This is per legislation, and as a requirement from the community college legislation, we have a group of students between the GPA of a 2.2 to a 2.7 that at the end of their junior year that will be required to take these courses. I can say that we do, let me back up and say, all of the courses I'm presenting to you, I do not have course descriptions nor course codes because DPI is not providing those yet. So we're waiting to get them, but I wanted to make sure that you all had this information before January 1. So the CCRG course, there would be a separate course for mathematics, and then the English course would be embedded into the English 4 class. And there will be an online module that is required for those courses. The state of North Carolina is expected to purchase that online module in those courses, and there is attached to your items, there is also a description of those CCRG courses. And then finally, the financial literacy course will be a part of the new social studies standards for the 2020-2021 school year. We will be launching that course this next school year. This I know was a conversation at the state board meeting. I've heard a little bit from some directors on Friday, and we will actually have a webinar again tomorrow. My perception is this course will be offered to freshmen coming in, and it will be a graduation requirement for students moving forward. Some of the scuttlebutt we had heard, nothing is confirmed, is that we might have to manipulate master schedules to address graduating seniors as well as freshmen, but I have not gotten clarity on that at this point, so we're just kind of in that space. No course description and no course code has been released from the Department of Instruction on any of those courses yet. Just wanted you to know that we would be adding those 4 courses, and I'll bring that back to you in January once I get that information.
And I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that what this could mean is that a student with a lower GPA will be in math, in the CCRG class, will be required to take the CCRG classes if they want to go into community college, or they'll just be required to take them. And
at this point,
that isn't accepted as math credit in the UNC system, so if they're planning on going to the UNC system, they're also gonna have to take a math class for that.
Correct.
And if this personal finance thing actually applies to everybody and not just freshmen, they'll have to take a personal finance class, and so that's those three that they may have to do with a lot of lack of clarity around any of it, and.
modules in there.
And the personal finance class, earlier, finance classes that they may have taken in the CTE track may not count, like may not cover that because it may be slightly different or something. So there's a lot of lack of clarity around there. And I felt like the School Boards Association, if they're not already involved in advocating for this, the fact that students could be taking personal finance and then have to repeat it potentially in order to graduate seemed like a problem. And then this piece around needing to take this like remedial math thing and also regular math in order to apply to UNC also seemed like, the whole thing seemed like a problem. So if the School Boards Association isn't like, I don't know when they speak up on things or not, but that seemed like a real issue, so I wanted to flag it for you. It wasn't a question for you, I just wanted to tell Ms. Stevens about that.
So, the only other thing I wanted to say is that this finance class, it's a wonderful thing for those who don't know. You know, we have a lot of students that are graduating from high school that are inadequately prepared for finances, and especially for these predatory lending, credit cards, this debt, they don't understand it. And this requirement, I hope we go after whatever, regardless of state or DPI, we put it in place, because our students really deserve to understand how to manage finance and not get in this loop of debt that they can never get out of.
1973, they taught the same course at Orange High School. It was called Consumer Economics. It stayed in place for about 4 or 5 years, and it was dropped by the state, but now it's been resurrected again. And it's just crazy to be asking kids to take the same course all over again, not get credit for what they took earlier. It's nuts.
Thank you so
More
much. Okay, do we have
You already had
any
a
other
motion.
discussions? All right, motion?
You already had a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, as a point of clarification, the transfers can wait till January as long as we are all okay with their choice schools remaining the same for next year, as opening the window for the choice schools in January for, that's Hillsborough, Central, Efland, and IB program at Cedar Ridge, because that window does have to open in January.
You need a motion on that?
So aren't they, you're not recommending a
No
change
changes,
between the
no
two,
changes.
so,
Keeping all the choice schools as they are.
so do we need a,
Do you know by policy whether the choice schools need keeping them the same? Do you know whether that has to be done each year? I mean, I know that you do the.
Discretionary transfers are different.
Yeah.
Choice schools, it really doesn't delineate the two. So
Okay.
We always bring them as a point of clarification for the board, but by nature, they are choice schools.
What about dual language at New Hope?
Dual language is for the students in the New Hope
Okay,
attendance.
all right.
So the consensus of the board, at least for the minutes, would be that there would be no changes with respect to the choice schools, and then if you need any ratification of that in January, when you do the rest, you can do it then. But does that sound okay?
correct? Thank you.
So do you want to interrupt the next presentation, or do you want a motion now to extend till 10:20?
That's what Tony was saying. So do you want to motion that?
Make a motion that we extend the meeting to 10:20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Brendan.
Then I'm turning it over to Sarah Pitts and the world-renowned Dr. Curcio to talk to you about air quality.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So today we're just gonna do a quick review over indoor air quality, and I just wanted to go over exactly what indoor air quality is. So indoor air quality is important as it refers to the air within and around the buildings and structures, especially as it relates to the health and comfort of the building occupants. Orange County Schools acknowledges that good indoor air quality contributes to a favorable environment for not only the performance of our staff and students, but also their sense of comfort, health, and well-being. Indoor air quality is a function of several different activities, and those will be discussed later in our presentation by Dr. Curcio. Maintaining good indoor air quality in our buildings requires the support of staff, teachers, students, and the members of the operations department. So, why is indoor air quality important to Orange County Schools? Because our commitment has always and will always be our staff and student safety. That is why the operations department works hard every day to ensure that they have a safe and healthy and supportive place to teach and learn. And that includes every single school and every single building in our district. While there are no federal regulations that we must follow when it comes to our schools' indoor air quality, we take several steps to ensure that our buildings are safe. As part of our commitment, Orange County Schools follows industry best practices in the EPA's Indoor Air Quality Tools for Schools framework, which provides a practical approach for both the response and prevention of indoor air quality problems. We also have been conducting indoor air quality audits at every school for well over a decade, and it has all been conducted by the Solutions Group. So tonight we have Dr. Larry Curcio, president of the Solutions Group, with us, and what he's gonna discuss is indoor air quality, the sampling methods and results, and our collaboration to create a corrective action plans for all of our schools.
People have a hard job. How do I?
Oh. Right here.
Okay, when we talk, first of all, I'm Larry Curcio, live in Chapel Hill right now, been in different countries, different states. Been practicing toxicology for over 40 years, so I enjoy working with Orange County Schools. I first was introduced with Dr. Halkiotis a number of years ago.
1895.
And we do indoor air quality for a lot of the school districts in this state. It's a pro bono activity. But I think before we get too into the details, it's important to understand that indoor air quality, as Sarah alluded to, is really a function of several different areas and responsibilities, including the buildings, including maintenance staff, the teachers, the principals, the students, what they're doing, and then we try to assess all those contributions to what is the overall air quality in the different schools. There are several contributors, I don't need to read them. I think the focus of most people is on mold and mildew, but they're importantly, especially with childhood asthma, a big factor in that is the dust factor. So we're looking closely at the cleanliness of the HVAC systems, and we do have some pictures to demonstrate what it should look like. We also look at the environmental conditions, the temperature in a room, the humidity in the school and in different rooms. And in some cases, we'll get complaints, the air quality in this room is bad. Well, the humidity is 67%. You know, it's really moist. So there's a little bit of a learning curve here with Dr. Halkiotis and when he was maintenance director. We did several presentations to the schools to talk about what we found, and I think that was very helpful and might bear repeating. When I think the board had asked Sarah or asked Dr. Henry for how do we actually sample? Spend about an hour to an hour and a half at each school. We go through the entire school. We listen. We're usually getting complaints of various staff at the particular school, so we certainly address those. I sometimes can have a pre-meeting with the assistant principal or the principal to find out, is there anything that they're particularly concerned about. We look for visual clues, and a lot of the presentation will show you what we're looking for. We're also looking for what's called measurement clues. This is, you know, temperature, humidity, out of range. Are there certain odors in particular areas? And then we finally do the actual sampling of either the air column or surfaces. It's important to understand that when we do a sample, especially tape samples or surface samples, we're not just going around and sampling a clean wall. We're actually looking for what could be mold and sampling that to get a better idea of what is actually going on in the school over a period of time. So when you read the reports, it's going to be what I characterize as a lot of bad news. It really doesn't, it's not that the school air quality is poor, but the various samples we've taken do indicate there may be a mold issue at the school, which has to be corrected.
So before you continue,
Yes.
it doesn't say it in your presentation, but on the sampling, I know that several board members had this kind of question is, we have,
What's good, what's bad?
well, more basic is if we have a building that's multi-story, do you do one on the bottom and the top? And then the second question is, if you have a facility that has multiple buildings, do you actually go and sample in each of the buildings? If you don't
Not
mind.
on every trip
Okay.
will we do that, but we've been doing this now for 15 years, approximately twice a year. So for that 30 trips to the school, we would have covered and recovered every possible area in the school. And that's where then we can back up a little bit and say, all right, what are the current complaints? We can do the walkthrough and see what looks like it needs attention.
And Mr. Atherton, I keep track of any concern areas that we may have, and I'll forward all of those to Dr. Curcio. And if a school doesn't have any concerns, that's exactly what I do. I have a running record of all the places that we've sampled, and so I'll pull a hall that hasn't been tested, or a building that hasn't been tested in a year, and say, we need you to go look at this, because we need to make sure we have adequate sampling throughout the whole entire campus.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. On the visual clue side, it's pretty straightforward. You can look at the supply and return registers, and this is really the source of my concern about the dust. We will sample those registers. Invariably, there will be mold spores associated with the dirt and debris that's there. But more importantly, from an asthma and a breathing perspective, you're really looking to make as much clarity as you can with the dust that's present in the air. And when we do an air sample, we'll pick up dust. We look for, I think it's 26 different species of mold. We're looking for pollen, animal and human dander, a variety of different parameters in that sample. Interestingly, we did this building a number of years ago due to complaints. The highest product that was in the air were actual human skin cells that had just,
Women's bathroom needs it next time.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That has some visual clues.
But you,
Yeah.
but you could see that's an obvious need for custodial attending. When we do the process methods, I already talked a little bit about this, we're measuring several different parameters. We're taking photographs, we're doing the visual observations, and the photographs support what we're seeing, so that when Sarah and I, or Dr. Henry and I talk about the results, we can actually go to the photographs and see what we're concerned about. We also will do surface moisture measurements as needed, primarily because mold loves two things. It loves cellulose, paper, wood fibers, and it loves water. So if we have high moisture in a given classroom from humidity, or there's leaks underneath, behind a wall, or famously the ceiling tiles, we're looking to see what kind of moisture levels are there. And then as needed, we will look at either carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide. When we take these collective observations, we will report them. We will prioritize for the maintenance department what we think needs to be addressed first, second, and third. In each report for each school, we'll put a list together of recommendations. And then as Sarah mentioned, we will get together, generally Dr. Henry, Sarah, myself, to do action planning. All right, we have 13 schools, these are the results, where do we start? And then it's left up to maintenance to either contract with us to hire subcontractors to do the remediation, or in many cases, maintenance can also do that. This is just an example. We report these things twice a year. It's a confidential report that we provide to Sarah, Dr. Henry, and Roger Ivy. That is by our contract, so I'm sure that could be shared if needed. on the prioritization, we're really, and this is where it gets fairly involved. We look at what did we find, how severe is it, how urgent is it, are there students exhibiting problems, respiratory problems, are there staff or teacher complaints, or are the parents concerned about their children? All of those can increase the urgency to address it. Also, how often, or some of the procedure, what's the timing to remediate the findings we're trying to accomplish positively. We do use biocidal chemicals. They kill the mold, they obliterate the mold, and we're properly equipped to be in the room when we're doing the treatment. I don't recommend that the students or the teachers be in during that time. You can apply it, wait 12 to 24 hours, and then people can come back in. On some significant remediation projects, we like to have at least a week, so we try to schedule these over Christmas breaks, spring breaks, etc., to get that level of remediation done, because oftentimes we'll be pulling down the ceiling tiles, we'll be cleaning off the hot and cold water piping, which is a large source of mold. And we're trying desperately, well, not desperately, we're trying and succeeding at positively influencing the outcome. When we talk about maintenance recommendations, I'm just going to show you some pictures and also emphasize that this is really not linked to, it's the custodian's issue or it's the principal's issue. It affects everybody. We see a situation like this, stained ceiling tile. I don't want maintenance or the custodians to replace the ceiling tile. Fix the leak underneath it first, and then you're free to replace whatever you want. But oftentimes putting a nice white ceiling tile up, it'll look like that within 2 weeks. So we're really trying to let's get to the root cause on this. When we first started this this consulting with Orange County schools, several of the schools were absolutely choked with plants up against the buildings. It might look nice, it blocks the weed poles, it's a source of moisture and insects, which we can find in the air samples. So we're trying to work with the individual schools, primarily the principals and the maintenance department, to say, all right, we need to get some breathing space around this school so that it can literally breathe properly. Many of the problems we're seeing are related to the old, worn, stale, stained carpeting. We're saying replace it with tile. Many of these carpets been there for, in some cases, the life of the school, I would imagine. They're really ratty looking. So get the carpeting torn up, do the asbestos survey if there's an issue with the tile, given the age, and just replace it. On the staff side, these are all photographs from Orange County schools, so there's nothing secretive here at all. People love plants. Plants are good, they emit oxygen, yes they do. They take in CO2, yes they do. They also produce a huge amount of pollen, and the dirt itself that the plants are growing in is home to probably 6 or 8 of the mold species we're looking for in the lab analysis. So, my mother was a teacher. I'm trying to balance, all right, and my brother was too, trying to balance the students' needs versus what makes sense from more of a scientific discipline. So, you can have plants, but just take good care of the plants and make sure they're clean and the dirt's not flying all over the place. This is an example, again, just staff on appliances. That's a refrigerator that holds the food. And you can see the mold right along that insulation seal. So, you can't expect the maintenance department to clean that. You can't expect necessarily the custodians to clean that. If staff is using a refrigerator for food or drink, make sure it's clean. Another issue, and we've talked with individual teachers about that, I don't like to run around and say, oh my gosh, look at this room, that room. But where there are habitats for child education, aquariums are great, terrariums are great. Having animals in the classroom, I guess, can be interesting.
You didn't say great.
Take care of them. When you have especially animals, clean the cages regularly, get rid of the waste from the animals, keep it well maintained. Another thing, that's the ventilation system for that particular classroom. I don't know where the air is going in or coming out, but that's the source of the ventilation of that particular classroom. So when we say it has to be unobstructed, we really mean it has to be unobstructed. And that's a fairly graphic example of what you don't necessarily want to do. As I said before, mold loves two things, water and cellulose. So here's an opportunity for mold. A few spores here or there, they find their home there. So, you know, we're trying to encourage people, you know, if you don't need paper clutter, get rid of it. You know, it makes common sense. This is where I get concerned about dust. This is a supply vent. This is supplying the fresh air to the classroom. So the fresh air is coming through the HVAC system and the ducts, and it's spilling over all that compounded dirt, which is being introduced into the air column that the students and teachers are breathing. Action planning, we have certain indoor air quality issues in certain schools that have to be corrected. This has been going on for the last 15 years, and I have to say, of all the school districts I've worked with in North Carolina, there are a fair number of them. Orange County, hands down, is doing it the right way. We're not being argued with. It's simply, what do we have to do, how much is it gonna cost, and when can we get it done? So really, you know, the activity to plan the remediation events takes into account you folks, the superintendent, the maintenance department, to identify what steps need to be taken and importantly when, but there is a program in place that might not be transparent to everybody, but we do look at the reports every 6 months. We do have an action plan, and we do have a corrective action program in place. It does rely on the cooperation of everybody. So, you know, when we're looking at something as simple as the HVAC ducts, we have a program in place where the custodians are supposed to clean these things 4 times a year. We bought HEPA vacuums to clean these. Every school had a HEPA vacuum. I would say maybe 30% of the schools are actually doing it, and the rest have gone to one side. I'm not gonna beat up on the custodians. I don't really care whether they're contract custodians or school employee custodians, but that's where I would turn first and foremost to the principal and say, look up in the ceiling, why is that as dirty as it is? So, you know, it's not, we can't point our finger, and I don't point fingers at one individual or one group of people, but this does require the support of everybody. When we do remediation, you'll go from the photograph on the left, obviously large amounts of black mold. That's the same pipe where the mold has been removed. The area underneath the mold has been treated. We reapply what's called an encapsulant, which prevents mold from growing either underneath it or on top of it. And that pipe will be in good shape for several years. I think the products we recommend are 20 years. I think that's a little aggressive. But, you know, with proper humidity, proper cleaning, that pipe will look the same for at least 10 to 12 years. The X I put in on the HVAC screen to my left, yep. And on the right is what a supply return should look like. it should be clean, free of dust. It's also gonna lower your costs for the filters that you have to put in the HVAC system. I think they're replaced monthly or every other month. Every three, and that's a perfectly fine turnaround, but if you can keep it cleaner, it's gonna be less load on the filters and the HVAC units.
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure.
So at our schools, we typically turn off the air and heating. How does that affect the air quality in our schools? I mean, I have no idea.
It
so I'm
reduces
just-
it. When we've been in school districts, and I think Orange County might have been one of them, but there's more important, if there's ones closer to the shore, they will shut their AC off for the summer because there's nobody in the school. The mold counts will soar, especially where you have a lot of paper, media centers, and they're destroying books right and left because they're completely encrusted in mold. I would recommend do you have an energy coordinator? I know you had one at one point. Okay. You're really balancing the need to save on energy with the need to maintain the health of the building, and shutting a system off is never a good idea. You can, in the spring in the winter going to the spring, you can crank the heat on, and that will dry out the air, but that's a temporary fix.
Do you want to amend to allow longer, extend or not?
All right, we're at 10:20. Or at least on the clock I can see. I mean,
Oh,
2
wow.
minutes back here.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
1 minute now.
Do we want to
Thank you,
extend?
Steve. Yeah, so if you have questions, the summary, you can read it yourselves. The indoor air quality issues that crop up at the schools are being addressed. There's no single group wholly responsible for having an issue, but importantly, very importantly, these issues are very resolvable and requires the cooperation of everybody.
Motion to amend 5 minutes.
Second.
Extend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Just a quick question. I think it would be really good for the benefit also of our new superintendent to take a look at the buildings that we now have contract cleaning versus the buildings that we still have our regular custodial staffs on board. What if any indoor air quality issues are in those respective categories. I thought we approved a custodial supervisor position.
We did.
They're-
Is that person in place?
Yes, sir, and they're gonna start doing comparative evaluations of the school. So the contracted cleaning group will start evaluating the school as far as cleanliness and those type of things. He will also go in. We should be able to potentially look at those in the next 6 months to look at
Good.
changes that are.
I think a lot of that will have a positive impact on a lot of these issues. This is some of the same stuff we dealt with 30 years ago. This is kind of crazy.
Go back to the picture of custodians clean all HVAC registers quarterly. It's the one where it's
This
going
one?
out, no, further back. Keep going. I just got 2 questions on
Yes,
this.
sir.
Recognize, this is where the air is coming out, correct?
Yep.
Okay. If we clean that, or we do it, since it's blowing out, I'll get to it. That means that dust is coming in from the ductwork. Are we
Yes.
doing anything to correct the dust in the ductwork?
The HEPA vacs that you're supposed to be using on these will suck all that dirt directly into the HEPA vacuum unit.
Okay.
Right now, you have air flowing over dust right this minute in that school, wherever it is.
So that stresses the importance of using that vac.
Yeah, and it also stresses the importance of doing it quarterly.
Yes, sir. There's just one other question, knowing that you're doing this yearly, do you ever compare and make sure that what you've highlighted in the past has been corrected?
We compare to what has been identified as an issue has been corrected, or it's still an issue.
Okay.
So we do both, and that's where Sarah, Roger, and I especially have spent some time going through that. And importantly also, we since the EPA, I sat on the EPA Indoor Air Quality Panel for 4 or 5 years, and we couldn't come up with a definition of what's a safe level of mold. So we always do concurrent outdoor air samples, and just for clarity, when we, rate a school as poor or something, we're comparing it to the outdoor levels. I've never seen in Orange County indoor levels higher than outdoors. Mold is ubiquitous in North Carolina. It's not unusual for us to find 100,000 counts per cubic meter of spores outside, and you'll have 5,000 maybe in the school. So there's a dramatic difference. And but we also look at the indoor air quality in each room that we take a sample and say, this looks a little high. There are standards, different allergy groups have different standards. The American Academy of Allergy, Immunology, something else, asthma, recommends a low count of 6,500 spore counts per cubic meter of air. My threshold is 1,000. So we're really trying to be as conservative as we can to say, we might want to look into this a little bit more.
So I have a generic question, hopefully to staff and possibly you as well. Do we have any known health issues in any of our schools right now?
One was brought to our attention last week. Ms. Pitts has met that individual, or, I'm sorry, I don't want to speak for you. I know you spoke to the right one.
Yes, I spoke with, the individual's mother via phone call.
Okay.
I have also stopped and spoke with the teacher in that classroom and the principal regarding any concerns that they may have known. And we had a contractor out today who looked at the whole entire room, looked above the ceiling, tore everything apart, could not find any current sources that could be there. But we are gonna take Dr. Curcio's recommendations of having the room thoroughly cleaned by the custodians, and then we're gonna follow his remediation actions, and those will occur next week.
Okay, are we gonna have an air scrubber in there while these?
She has an air purifier in there right now, and it has been running all school year, because I know that the particular teacher that's in there suffers from a lot of allergies, and some of them are those that we can't prevent, such as dander coming in with children on their clothes, that type of thing. So that teacher has been running one that has been on all year long.
So there's no other issues that we have in our school systems right now?
Known that have been brought to my attention as far as children not feeling well, no.
What kind of machine has been running in there all year long? Not an ion generator, I hope.
No, it's a scrubber
air
with a,
scrubber.
Oh,
with
okay.
a
All right.
HEPA filter and a charcoal filter.
Okay. She didn't have to buy it, I hope.
Nope, we provide them.
Thank you.
We also have a maintenance schedule where we change the filters accordingly.
Yeah, I wanted to praise you, Sarah, because you've been really on top of this stuff since you came here. And you started out hard-nosed, and I think you have to be hard-nosed with some of this stuff.
Sure do.
Because you cannot allow dirty situations to exist in the schools. And I'm gonna remind everybody, for the benefit of Dr. Felder, we got rid of one contract cleaning company last year, right, Jake? So you and got another one on board. They were not cleaning the schools. Some of us were getting pictures from teachers of dead bugs in the same place for 4 months. And that was Orange High School. I'll just go ahead and say it.
It's significantly better.
Great.
All right, are there any other questions from any board members or comments?
Your time is up.
Thank you very much.
I would take that as a no. Okay, do we have a mo-
And I suspect we're gonna defer any other closed session.
Yes,
So,
yes. So we have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.